Chapter 310. Lu Shi and Jiang Pengji stayed at the Feng residence for a long time, but all good things must come to an end. Time passed, and it was time for the two families to part ways. Lanting, you have to be careful in Langyi Academy. Think before you act. Don't be impulsive. Feng Jin thought of Jiang Pengji's gender and wanted to sigh more than once. If his good friend was a man, things would be much easier. Unfortunately, she was a woman and was naturally restricted by her gender. Feng Jin felt it was a pity. I know. Do I look like the kind of person who causes trouble? Jiang Pengji said innocently. Feng Jin was silent for a while and said bluntly, You do. Su Ku, who was standing at the side, almost laughed out loud. He was liking this Feng Langjun more and more. He was straightforward and honest. Jiang Pengji glanced at Su Ku unhappily. You're helping others. Hui Jun was handed over to Lu Shi. He would send someone to teach her various skills and familiarize her with the rules and etiquette. Lu Shi had already received his appointment letter in Chongzhou. He would be leaving soon, so Jiang Pengji could not go with him. Therefore, before leaving, Lu Shi brought a generous gift to Master Yuanjing and asked him to take care of Jiang Pengji. She was going to study, not to enjoy life. Therefore, there were only two people going with Jiang Pengji to Langyi. One was Takshu, and the other was Su Ku. As for the servants who would take care of her, they could wait until they reached Langya and find someone to arrange them for them. I've always trusted you. You don't have to force yourself to study in Langyi. Lu Shi looked at his daughter who was growing up. He was filled with emotions. Master Yuanjing is talented. You have to learn from him. If you don't understand, ask. Don't feel troubled or embarrassed. If there are any inconveniences in life, send someone to send a letter to me. Don't make yourself suffer. Lu Shi was not a pretentious person, but looking at his daughter, he felt a little worried. He only had one child. Min's bloodline in this world was only this one. No matter how Lu Shi nagged, Jiang Pengji agreed obediently. The next day, after saying goodbye to Feng Ren, his wife, and Feng Jin, Jiang Pengji sat in the carriage. The coachman gently waved the whip and the wheels turned. Lu Shi also boarded the carriage. His entourage was much larger than Jiang Pengji's. There were more than 100 guards on both sides of the carriage. Nowadays, Chongzhou was not stable. They did not know what dangers they would encounter on the road. Bringing more people would increase their safety. As for Jiang Pengji, she could take on a group of people by herself, so she didn't need anyone's protection. That was why she rejected Lu Shi's proposal to assign guards to her. Jiang Pengji suppressed her unnecessary emotions and glanced at the Feng residence where she had been staying for a long time. She lowered the curtain of the carriage and her expression returned to its usual indifference. He leaned against the table and read for a while. When he got bored, he looked up at the bullet screen to kill time. The audience in the streaming room was also affected by the snow disaster some time ago. They were not in a good mood. Most of the bullet screens were greetings, and there was very little content about showing off. Jiang Pengji flipped through the comments page after page, and her lips curled into a sneer. If she was in a bad mood, the system would not be any better. System, I suddenly thought of something. Don't you think there's something strange about the live stream? The roads in the wealthy district of Shangjing were very smooth. Coupled with the powerful shock absorption system of the Lu residence, she almost did not feel the vibration when she sat in the carriage. Ever since the system parted with Jiang Pengji on bad terms, it had not made a sound for a few days. Now that Jiang Pengji took the initiative to talk to it, it felt a little anxious. It felt that it was not a good thing. What's missing? The system asked her. Jiang Pengji looked like she did not care. She flipped through the bullet screen records day after day, starting from today. Because she had a super strong memory, her reading speed was abnormally fast. She looked through the records faster than flipping through a book. I remember you once told me that your full name is Multidimensional Palace Intrigue Streaming System. Not to mention the recent era in the streaming room, even in my interstellar era, the theory of planes has always been one of the scientific research goals pursued by scientists. Jiang Pengji said coldly, but the system's heart skipped a beat. It did not dare to make a sound. It wished it could erase its own existence. If a streaming platform suddenly pops up in the dimension I'm in, and it's proven to be real. Jiang Pengji tilted her head, and the sneer at the corner of her lips made the system shudder. Do you think that a normal government machine or a big force with a certain amount of power would really be indifferent to this? But I've looked through the bullet screen records for so long, and I don't seem to find anything unusual. Jiang Pengji said it lightly, but it was tantamount to a clap of thunder in the ears of the system. After she intimidated the system, she sighed and said, "Can you explain why?" She had always been highly suspicious and wary of the system. Why? Because the system was not worthy of her trust. It had too many tricks up its sleeves. She would be a fool to believe it. If she had not tested it several times and confirmed that the audience in the streaming room was real, and that it was indeed connected to another plane, she would have suspected that the audience was fake. The so-called multidimensional streaming system was just an illusion that the system had created by itself. The plane was real, but a very important part of the bullet screen was missing. Jiang Pengji could not help but suspect that the system was manipulating things behind the scenes. Any bullet screen that involved the official forces of that plane had been secretly cleared by the system. In other words, those people were not qualified to enter the streaming room at all, let alone post bullet screen content. What was the system trying to do? After a long time, Jiang Pengji thought that the system was going to pretend to be deaf and mute. The other party gave an explanation. The streamer's streaming level is too low, so she does not have the authority in this area. In addition, the theme of the streaming room is palace intrigue. Your task is only to stream how to fight in the palace intrigue, and how to turn a noble lady from an aristocratic family into an empress who rules the world. Therefore, you need an interested audience, not a group of opportunists with ulterior motives. As a system, you must strictly control the situation and ensure that the streaming is watchable. The system replied coldly. It added, as a system, my responsibility is to guide the streamer on the right path. Any content that has nothing to do with the main plot and elements that affect the viewing of the streaming room must be removed. Therefore, the official forces of that plane cannot enter the streaming room, let alone post content that is misleading to the streamer. Regarding this point, you can carefully look at the streaming agreement that you signed at the beginning. The system was businesslike and followed the rules and regulations. She could not say anything about it. Jiang Pengji secretly clicked her tongue. Anyway, there was only one system. Whether it was black or white, it could make up whatever it wanted. No matter what the other party said, she did not believe a single word it said. Jiang Pengji snorted and said, "That's fine. Anyway, I don't like to deal with unfamiliar forces." She had full control over her own life, and no one could interfere with it. Hearing her say that, the system secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 311. Wei Ci looked at Jiang Pengji in a daze, his mind full of thoughts. The person in front of him was definitely at the top of the list of people he was most afraid of seeing. The scene he saw the day before was still echoing in his mind. He could not calm down no matter what he did. He would always wake up from his nightmares at midnight, sweating profusely. Yesterday, he tossed and turned restlessly, unable to fall asleep. He did not have much appetite in the morning, so he only ate some white cake. Coupled with the dark circles under his eyes, people who did not know would think that the white cake was unpalatable. Lu Jing could usually eat 2 more bowls of rice when he looked at Wei Ci's face, but he had no appetite today. Before he could complain, Master Yuanjing, who had squinted his eyes and moved closer to the bamboo slip, suddenly spoke. "Zixiao, there is a distinguished guest at the door. Go out and receive her." Wei Ci did not understand, but looking at Master Yuanjing's slightly squinted eyes, his heart could not help but skip a beat. He had an ominous premonition. He muttered to himself. When he saw Jiang Pengji get out of the carriage, he felt a slight stomachache, as if the white cake he had just eaten was rolling in his stomach. Jiang Pengji stepped forward, seemingly not noticing Wei Ci's strange expression, and greeted him. Zixiao, we will be classmates in the future. If I have done anything wrong in the past, I hope that Zixiao will forgive me on account of she's young age. I am not very good with words, and people often misunderstand me. I hope Zixiao will not alienate me because of this. Wei Ci nodded, not daring to speak more. He did not believe the humble words of the person in front of him. She was used to being willful and reckless, doing whatever she wanted to do. If she said, "I am not very good with words, hit me if you don't like it," or something like that, he would believe her. Anyway, he could not beat her. Jiang Pengji did not care about his attitude. She raised her hand and untied the rope of the cloak. Wei Ci saw this and subconsciously took a step back. Both of them were silent at the same time. Jiang Pengji thought of something and smiled innocently. She handed the cloak to Takshu, who followed behind her. She did not miss Wei Ci's slightly relieved expression. When she passed by him, she whispered something. That day, I lent the cloak to Zixiao to ward off the cold. Although it is not worth much, it is one of she's favorites. Jiang Pengji lied through her teeth. Wei Ci seemed to be facing a formidable enemy. She smiled softly and said, "I wonder if I can go to Zixiao's room to get." Before she could finish her sentence, Wei Ci seemed to explode. He took a step forward and walked quickly, looking as if he had been frightened. Jiang Pengji shrugged her shoulders as she faced Takshu and Su Ku, who looked like they had seen a ghost. She looked exactly like a local ruffian. Su Ku was dumbfounded. He couldn't believe that the person who had flirted with him was actually his Lang Jun. "Since when did you have the hobby of being gay?" As if she could read his thoughts, Jiang Pengji said, "You're not as good-looking as him. Why are you so worried?" Su Ku, should he be happy that he was safe, or sad that his face was picked on? Takshu, on the other hand, was stunned at first, but she quickly regained her composure. She raised her hand to cover her lips, giggling as she teased. "Our Lang Jun has grown up. When spring came, she would be 13 years old. In this era, those who were engaged would have gotten married, and those who were not would have gotten engaged." Su Ku secretly rolled his eyes. Jiang Pengji said meaningfully, "Yes, he's grown up." After greeting Master Yuanjing, Jiang Pengji was considered a student of Langyi Academy. She could study in the academy in the future. "Who is this?" Master Yuanjing smiled kindly. His gaze moved from Jiang Pengji to Su Ku. "His name is Su Ku. He's my study companion." Su Ku was very nervous. He was like a prisoner waiting for his trial. He was nervous and uneasy. He was afraid that Master Yuanjing would be unhappy with him. "He's a good seedling. He can be a great talent. Get up, all of you." Master Yuanjing was like a kind elder. He made people feel close to him. "Lanting, have you had your breakfast? Do you want to have some with me?" There were 2 plates of white cakes on Master Yuanjing's table. There was a teapot next to him that was boiling hot tea. There was a sweet smell in the air. Su Ku was stunned. He never thought that Master Yuanjing, who was famous in the 9 prefectures, would be so down to earth. Normally, when Master Yuanjing invited someone, even if they had eaten, they would have to say that they had not. However, Jiang Pengji did not play by the rules. She spoke bluntly. "I've eaten." Master Yuanjing did not expose Jiang Pengji's lie. He turned to Su Ku and asked, "Have you eaten too?" Su Ku was still confused. He shook his head. He did not know why Master Yuanjing dragged him to eat white cakes. White cakes were a common breakfast in Langyi. However, Master Yuanjing had a unique taste. He ate white cakes with fragrant tea. There were many spices in the fragrant tea. It tasted weird, but the white cakes were dipped in honey. In short, this way of eating was like dipping lychees in soy sauce. Jiang Pengji politely declined. Su Ku was quite happy at first. After eating, his stomach felt uncomfortable. Jiang Pengji had expected it. She looked at Su Ku's bitter expression as if she was watching a show. "TSK, TSK. I told you to eat whatever you want. Have you learned your lesson? She had a sharp sense of smell. After analyzing the spices in the pot of tea, she knew to stay away from it. However, Suku went to it. How did I know? Master's tea brewing skills are so, he did not know what words to use to describe it. Jiang Pengji smiled and said, Master Yuanjing's tea brewing skills are not a problem. However, an old man has a heavy taste. His stomach is not good, so the tea he makes is naturally better for digestion. You were born in Zisong County. The food there is more bland. Naturally, you can't stand it. Suku smacked his lips. There seemed to be an indescribable, strange taste left in his mouth. Although he was flattered to have breakfast with his idol, it was better to eat less of such dark cuisine. Jiang Pengji said, help me pack up. Master Yuanjing and the rest will leave for Langyi this afternoon. So soon? Suku was stunned. He thought he could rest for a day or two at the guest house. Not soon. They had been delayed in Shangjing for a long time. Jiang Pengji shook her head in disappointment and said, in the morning, my father told me that the imperial court has no time to arrange a place for the scholars. They are to return to their hometown and wait for the decree. The reason was very ready-made. They were busy building relationships with the northern borderline and the marriage of the second prince. How could they care about other trivial matters? What they did not know was that most of the scholars were arrogant people. They were so ambitious that they were given the cold shoulder. They probably did not want to enter the imperial court to be an official. Not everyone liked the intrigue in the officialdom. Instead of fighting in the officialdom, it was better to be a famous scholar and still be famous. A slightly familiar-looking young man walked through the corridor and came to the hall. He bowed to Master Yuanjing. Master, the carriage and dry food are ready. Chapter 312. Meng Heng, the eldest son of Meng Zhan, the county chief of Meng County in Sang Prefecture, and the son of Lu Shi's second wife, Gu Zhen. He is now facing the danger of being assassinated. Please accept him. If the mission is completed, the host will be rewarded with a big mystery bag. If the mission is failed, the host will receive a level 1 electric shock as punishment. Jiang Pengji closed her eyes and leaned against the table. She seemed to be taking a nap, but she heard the system-synthesized voice. Meng Heng? She frowned, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the table. Big mystery package? The system coughed softly and said, yes, this is the characteristic of real-time triggered missions. It's similar to a gold chest, and the probability of getting something good is very high. I hope that the host can consider this mission. After all, it has been a while since you started a live broadcast mission, so the rewards are limited. As long as we accept Meng Heng and bring him along for a while, it will be considered a success. Jiang Pengji snorted coldly and said, System, you seem to have forgotten. I'm not in charge of the team here, and it's not up to me to decide whether or not we can accept one more person. Although there were many people in the caravan, most of them were frail scholars. If the mastermind really wants to kill Meng Heng, it will definitely bring danger to the convoy. Even if one person is accidentally injured, it will be a great loss. You want me to bet on it? The system was speechless. It tried to persuade Jiang Pengji, but it swallowed the words that were on the tip of its tongue. This host was not someone who could be easily fooled. It knew this very well. In that case, the host can choose to give up the mission. Even if you fail, the punishment is only a level 1 electric shock, which won't affect the host much. However, from the perspective of a system, it would be better for you to accept this mission. After all, Meng Heng is not only Meng Zhan's son, but also the only remaining descendant of your aunt Gu Zhen. He is your cousin. Jiang Pengji pondered for a long time and asked, if I don't intervene, what are the chances of something happening to Meng Heng? The system replied, I've looked at the probability. It's 9 out of 10. Jiang Pengji glanced at the big mystery bag on the mission panel with an odd expression. Don't bother me. I'll think about it. The system said in a businesslike manner, all right, I won't disturb you. She did not seem to have any change on the surface, but she was secretly sneering in her heart. In the end, the system could not hold it in any longer. Jiang Pengji was in no hurry to upgrade the streaming room. She had said earlier that the leveling up of the live stream depended on the upgrade card. If she could not get a upgrade card, she would not level up. It had been more than half a year, and she had been saving up her popularity points like a miser. No matter what the system said, she was unmoved. Why was she like this? Because she had already seen through the system's little tricks. So what if it was a system? To put it bluntly, it was just a bunch of data that thought it was clever. Did it think it could fool a living person like her? Dream on. After a few confrontations, the system did not gain the upper hand. Instead, Jiang Pengji found out more about the other party and knew what popularity points were. To the system, popularity points were the source of its upgrades and daily activities. Perhaps there were even more important uses. If the live stream room did not level up, the number of points gained daily would not increase. It would be fixed at that point. Unfortunately, the system's appetite was gradually increasing. It was like a 3 or 4 month-old baby growing into a 1 or 2-year-old child. In the past, he only needed a few mouthfuls of milk to fill his stomach. Now, he needed a small bowl of muddled paste. Under such circumstances, the upper limit of the number of people in the live broadcast room had to be increased. Only then would the daily popularity points be able to satisfy the system's appetite. How to increase the maximum number of people? There were only 2 ways. One was to use the upgrade card, the other was to pay for the upgrade from the streamer's own pocket. The system claimed that for the sake of the streamer, a small investment would yield a big return. When the upper limit of the number of people increased, the streamer would receive more benefits. However, was Jiang Pengji such a stupid person? If the system was hungry, then let it be hungry. It had nothing to do with her. More importantly, Jiang Pengji suspected that the upgrade of the streaming room did not require that many popularity points. Who knew how much commission the system had received from it? Jiang Pengji could not be bothered to believe a single word the system said. Her solution was to drag it out. Drag it out until the system could not take it anymore and urgently needed more popularity points. Then it would pay for Jiang Pengji's upgrade. In fact, that was how the first upgrade card came about. She dared to bet that the real-time triggered task was meaningless. It was just an excuse for the system to give Jiang Pengji the upgrade card. If she opened the so-called big mystery package, there would definitely be a upgrade card. Ever since Jiang Pengji knew that the system could read her mind, she divided her consciousness into 2. She fooled the system with her superficial psychological activities, and her deeper consciousness was her real intention. Well, she concluded that it did not matter whether she completed the task or not. I'll accept it. Just when the system was feeling uneasy, Jiang Pengji's light words made it cry tears of joy. It was as if it had been granted amnesty. It was rare for the host to be so easy to talk to. Takshu, I'm going to ride the horse for a while. I feel like my waist is going to ache after sitting in the carriage for so long. Jiang Pengji put the hand warmer in her arms in Takshu's arms. She lifted the curtain a little and went out sideways. Soon, the curtain was closed. Lang Jun, remember to put on a cloak so that you won't catch a cold. Takshu stuck her head out and handed a cloak to Jiang Pengji. Jiang Pengji nimbly got on the horse and took the cloak with one hand. She shook her wrist, and the huge cloak covered her body obediently as if it had eyes. Zuda, look. Young people are full of vitality and aren't afraid of the cold. It's enviable. Master Yuanjing heard the commotion and lifted the curtain slightly to take a look. He smiled with relief. He held a hand warmer in his hand. He wanted to curl up into a ball, and he looked like he had put on a lot of weight. Zuda smiled as he fiddled with the silver coals in the charcoal basin. He moved it a little further away so that he wouldn't burn anything. You're old but strong now. You're not inferior to a young person. You were playing on the ice with your friends a while ago. I didn't even dare to go down. Zuda smiled and said shyly, if you say that you're old, I'll be the first to disagree. Master Yuanjing could not help but laugh. Your mouth is getting sweeter every day. I feel like I've lost weight because of what you've said. The previous snowfall had just stopped, and now it was snowing again. The cold wind that blew against their faces was like knives, and it hurt their cheeks. Jianghu put on her hood and held the reins with both hands. She urged the horse to run from the back of the group to the front to clear the way. He really can't stay idle. Wei Ci was engrossed in his book when he heard the loud sound of horse hooves. He raised his hand to lift the curtain of the carriage, only to see a white figure speeding past the carriage. The cold wind that was stirred up blew on his face, making him feel a little more cheerful. Chapter 313. Wei Ci looked at Lu Zheng and laughed. You can even hug a charcoal basin to sleep, how can you still be cold? Lu Zheng was the son of a hunter and had lived in the mountains since he was young. How could he be so afraid of the cold? Of course it's cold. I was afraid of the cold when I was young. Lu Zheng muttered, wishing he could live in the charcoal basin. If he had not experienced the feeling of his hands and feet being frozen, how could he be so afraid of the cold? After hearing this, Wei Ci was quiet for a few breaths. His expression was a little nostalgic. Everyone knew that he was the legitimate son of the Wei family, but they did not know that he had a dark period where he was treated coldly by everyone. When the weather turned cold, the room would be as cold as an icehouse. After a winter day, he did not even know where the charcoal portion went and could only hide in his bed in fear. Even after he grew up, his fear of the cold was still deep in his bones. When the weather turned cold, his hands and feet would be extremely cold. How did it improve after that? Zixiao, why are your hands and feet so cold? Come, I'll reluctantly let you hug me. Compared to him who was as cold as ice, someone was as hot as a moving furnace all year round. When Wei Ci thought of this, his cheeks suddenly became a little flushed, but it was not obvious because of the ample heating in the carriage. Don't you know how to wear an extra coat? Aren't you afraid of the cold? Wei Ci was no longer in the mood to read and murmured to someone. Lu Zheng looked up blankly and suddenly became happy. Zixiao is the best, you know how to be considerate of your brother. As he spoke, he opened Wei Ci's suitcase. A thick white fur cloak was neatly stacked on top with a painting on it. Wei Ci was speechless. Lu Zheng said, I think this rabbit fur cloak is quite warm, let me wear it for a while. This painting, Zixiao's painting skills are really good, it's really nice. Lu Xiaoyin, get off the carriage. Lu Zheng was stunned. No matter how ignorant he was, he knew that he seemed to have touched something that should not be changed, so he hurriedly grabbed the carriage door. No, I'm not getting off. Wei Zixiao, you heartless man, if you don't take me in, I'll freeze to death. If I freeze to death, I'll dream of you in the middle of the night and talk to you in detail. Lu Zheng raised his voice like a pig being slaughtered. His attitude of, if you chase me down, I'll fight you to the death, almost made Wei Ci collapse in anger. Lv Xiaoyin, who once swore to live and die with her old master, refused to bow down even if the city was besieged for half a year and had no food. Was this the kind of person she was? Wei Ci deeply suspected that the Lv Xiaoyin who submitted 10 letters of surrender, scolded Emperor Chen, and finally sacrificed herself for her master was not the person in front of him. The soundproofing of the carriage was not good, and Lu Zheng's voice was so loud that his classmates in several carriages could hear the commotion. Han Yu heard the commotion and laughed. Zixiao, what have you done to deserve the wrath of the gods? Why are you being called a heartless man? Wei Ci was so angry that his face turned red. However, he still had integrity and did not explain. However, Lu Zheng was a shameless fellow. He also did not care about his manners and stuck his head out of the car window. Zixiao should be of marriageable age. He accidentally saw something he shouldn't have seen. Now he's about to silence him. Can Wenbin let Lu Zheng stay for a few days? Han Yu laughed, you can't. If Zixiao wants to silence you, I won't be able to protect you. Jianghu came back from a run. She could not help but frown when she heard their teasing. Isn't it just 1 or 2 pictures of avoiding fire? Why are you so shy? As soon as she said that, Lu Jing suddenly leaned against the window and laughed. Wei Si's face turned pale. He never expected that Lu Jing, whom he had little interaction with, would have such a vile nature. Lu Jing was also a person who knew when to stop. He was very good at reading the situation. Seeing that Wei Si was really angry, he could not help but raise his fist and cough lightly. Zixiao, please forgive me. I was indeed reckless this time. I went too far with the joke. I hope you can be magnanimous and forgive me. Wei Si said stiffly, don't do it again. When Lu Zheng heard this, he was instantly full of vigor. He stared at the picture scroll. Before the advent of paper, scholars mostly used high-quality cloth as the base and splashed ink to paint. Now that there was improved bamboo paper, they slowly switched to paper, and this kind of paper picture scroll came into being. Lu Jing knew that Wei Si was good at many things. There were even rumors in Langya that he was the reincarnation of the previous dynasty's Huangfu of Langya. His literary talent was not inferior to that of Master Yuanjing. In a few years, he would even be more outstanding. But rumors were rumors after all. In Lu Zheng's eyes, Master Yuanjing was like an insurmountable mountain. What did Wei Si do to have such a reputation? Now that he saw the content of the picture scroll, he was slightly convinced. The woman sleeping on the flower in the picture scroll was vivid and lifelike. It was as if she would open her eyes in the next second. If it was not for Wei Si's bad complexion, Lu Jing could not help but feel her breath with his hand to see if she was still alive. The woman was dressed very boldly. Her sleeves were narrow, revealing 2 snow-white wrists. Her skirt could only cover her calves. 2 silver rings hung around her ankles. Her feet were pillowed on the flower petals of the sleeping beauty. It made the redder and whiter the whiter, making one's heart flutter. Why does this person look so familiar? Lu Jing murmured and stared at the person's face. Wei Si had already taken the picture scroll from his hand and carefully rolled it back. You're seeing things. Wei Si pulled the suitcase over and stuffed the cloak from the top layer to the bottom layer. The picture scroll was even more tightly hidden. Lu Zheng was speechless. He felt that the Wei Si in front of him was very different from the Wei Langjun of the rumors. However, with such good drawing skills, if he really went to draw the fire avoidance painting, wouldn't the scene be so real that one could not bear to look at it? Although it was not the fire avoidance painting, to draw such bold content. TSK, Wei Si was not a serious person. Unfortunately, Wei Si also felt that this Lu Jing was very different from the Lu Shaoyin in his memory. Both of them had a tacit understanding. I probably met a fake Lu Shaoyin, Wei Zixiao. After walking for half a day, the servants started a fire to cook. The carriages surrounded an empty space to block the surrounding wind. Jiang Pengji asked the system secretly, where is Mengheng? If you don't tell me where he is, how can I save him? The system replied, no hurry, he'll be here soon. Not long after, just as 3 bonfires were set up, a few silhouettes walked over in the distance, braving the wind and snow. Jiang Pengji was still riding on the horse. She said, I'll go take a look first. I don't know if they're friends or foes. They had already left Shangjing, and it was not peaceful outside. It was very easy to meet bandits or people who were being robbed by bandits. Out of caution, Jiang Pengji went to investigate first. Who's in front? Jiang Pengji stopped them on the horse. There were only 3 people in front of them. Judging from their clothes, they should be a servant and 2 guards. The servant bowed to Jiang Pengji and said, I'm the servant of First Langjun, the chief of Meng County. The road is bumpy and the snow is slippery, so the wheels of the carriage are broken. I don't know what to do now. I saw a bonfire here, so I took the liberty to come and ask for help. Jiang Pengji frowned and asked, First Langjun of the chief of Meng County? Is he Mengheng? The servant said, yes, he is my Langjun. Jiang Pengji's cold face warmed up a little. She said, what a coincidence. My father is Lu Shi from Hejin. If we're talking about relatives, Meng Hang is my eldest cousin. Where is he now? I'll go take a look. When the servant heard Lu Shi's name, he thought it was bad. He did not expect Jiang Pengji to recognize him as her relative. He was relieved. Chapter 3:14. The system's voice rang in Jiang Pengji's ears the moment she saw Meng Hang. System, congratulations, streamer, for completing the real-time mission, help Meng Hang. You will be rewarded with a big mystery package. Please receive your reward at the backstage. That was it? Jiang Pengji chuckled. The system really couldn't take it anymore. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in such a hurry. She looked at Meng Hang calmly. Unlike Meng Hang, who had a delicate appearance, Meng Hang looked rough at first glance. He was dressed in a scholarly robe, which made him look neither fish nor fowl. However, when she looked closely, she felt that he was full of determination. Meng Hang was more of a warrior who was proficient in martial arts than a scholar who was well versed in poetry. She glanced at the thick calluses on his hands. It was the mark of holding a sword and a spear all year round. Even if Meng Hang was not good at martial arts, his body was definitely not weak. Are you cousin Hang? Jiang Pengji informed Master Yuan Jing, then followed the servants and guards to meet Meng Hang. When she first saw Meng Hang, he was still sitting in the carriage, wearing a gray cloak. The charcoal in the carriage had long been extinguished, and there was no residual heat. The decorations inside were also simple. He looked like an ordinary scholar from a poor family. She couldn't tell that he was the legitimate son of the Mengs at all. You are? Meng Hang frowned. He couldn't remember when he had seen Jiang Pengji. Mother often talks to me about cousin Hang. She's always worried about your days in the Mengs. Jiang Pengji didn't explain her background, but Meng Hang understood when he heard that. You are cousin Shi? Meng Hang looked at her blankly. He didn't expect that the handsome young man in front of him was the rumored second legitimate son of Lu Shi. When he heard Jiang Pengji mention Gu Zhen, his expression became a little obscure. How has mother been all these years? When Gu Zhen left the Mengs, Meng Hang could barely remember, so he more or less knew what had happened. Because he knew what would happen to Gu Zhen if she didn't leave, Meng Hang didn't have any resentment towards his birth mother. Instead, he respected and pitied her. The Meng's residence was not a good place. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone all the way to Shangjing to study and avoid those messy things. Jiang Pengji said, I fell seriously ill early this spring. My mother almost didn't make it. However, fortune and misfortune go hand in hand. After I recovered from that serious illness, even some of the ailments I had when I was young were cured. Now I'm living very well. Meng Hang said, Mother is doing well. Nothing could be better. Jiang Pengji asked him, I heard from cousin Hang's servant that there's something wrong with the carriage's wheels? Meng Hang's face flushed with embarrassment. Yes. Jiang Pengji secretly glanced at the broken wheel and immediately understood where the problem was. It was unknown how many years this carriage had been in service. It had been in disrepair for many years, and the wheels had also been used for many years. It was only now that it could no longer bear the load and was broken. How could the eldest son of the Meng family sit in such an old carriage? It was obvious how hard his days in the Meng family were. Going out on a snowy day, they didn't have enough charcoal in the carriage. Even the clothes they wore were old clothes that had been washed countless times. If cousin Hang isn't in a hurry, why don't you come with me? We can take care of each other. Jiang Pengji invited him like a naughty 12-year-old. My mother is so sick that she's unconscious. She often calls out cousin Hang's pet name at the door. Now that we've met, I have to ask you properly. When I go back, I can learn from my mother so that she won't have to worry. Meng Hang's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. It was as if that scene appeared in his mind. He didn't have many memories of his childhood, but he still had an impression of Gu Zhen. She was such a quiet and beautiful lady, as if she had walked out of a painting. One couldn't help but sigh at the peace of life. Now that she was still thinking about him when she was seriously ill, how could he not be touched? His heart warmed up. He said, "If that's the case, I'll have to trouble you. My mother has remarried many years ago. It's a pity that I haven't visited her. Cousin Shi, can you tell me more about my mother?" Of course. Jiang Pengji brought 3 carriages with her. She could still spare one for Mengheng after tidying them up a little. Knowing that Master Yuanjing, who was famous throughout the 9 prefectures, was in the carriages, Mengheng was stunned. He was so stunned that he couldn't react. "Cousin Shi, have you studied under Master Yuanjing?" "No, Master Yuanjing is very strict when it comes to accepting disciples. I've only studied at Master's Academy for a few years, and I've learned a lot." Mengheng didn't look like a clever person based on his face, but he was very honest with his words and actions. When he heard that his cousin could study at Langyi Academy, he couldn't help but nag a little. It was nothing more than to urge him to study hard and make progress every day. If it was a delicate young man, he would definitely show an impatient look, but Jiang Pengji enjoyed it very much. Mengheng was like a lotus flower that was bred in the swamp of the Meng's manor. He was very unique. Master Yuanjing's students were very temperamental. Not everyone got along with them. Some classmates had only spoken a few words to each other for a few years. Their friendship was very thin, and they were quite averse to outsiders. Mengheng noticed this, so he spent most of his time in the carriage. He occasionally came out to talk to Jiang Pengji, but he rarely talked to Master Yuanjing's students. After Jiang Pengji completed the triggered mission that was not difficult at all, she ignored the big mystery package in the backstage mailbox. The system couldn't stand it and urged her to open it, but Jiang Pengji said, "I'll open it on an auspicious day when my face is good." "System, I have something to say now." She didn't provoke the system, so she found a chance to ask Wei Ci the next day. "I heard from Master Yuanjing that Zixiao is proficient in the 8 diagrams of changes. Can he read people's faces?" Wei Ci lifted the curtain of the carriage and asked Jiang Pengji with his eyes. What kind of demon was she trying to be? "What do you think of my luck today?" she asked. Wei Ci's face turned green after he heard that. He looked at Jiang Pengji with some unfriendliness. "I'm asking sincerely. I'm not trying to tease you." He continued to look indifferent. "Her glabella is red, and the evil aura won't invade. This is great luck." He had never seen her glabella turn black. Even if the evil aura from outside entered her body, it couldn't suppress the evil aura in her body. Jiang Pengji responded with an "oh" and tightened her grip on the horse's belly. White obediently ran 2 steps forward. Wei Ci, she had enough of pretending. Jiang Pengji finally opened the big mystery package backstage. The package suddenly broke into pieces and floated in the air. Then, like fine sand, they gathered together and formed a golden object. Hee hee. Jiang Pengji pinched it with 2 fingers and made a sound of surprise. "System, look at how red I am." The system was silent. After a while, it said, "I'm serving tea to you, lucky queen." She used a little force and crushed the card. A choice popped up in front of her. Little Angel System warmly reminds you that the host is currently a level 2 streamer. After using the card, you will be promoted to level 3. The number of people online in the streaming room will increase to 50,000. Are you sure you want to use the level up card? A. Yes. B. No. Chapter 315. System Announcement. Congratulations to the host, Jiang Pengji, for leveling up to level 3. The upper limit of the streaming room has been expanded to 50,000 viewers. Clusters of fireworks exploded on the virtual screen, covering the originally sparse bullet screen. The level 2 streaming room had light decorative patterns. After leveling up to level 3, the color of the patterns deepened and became very gorgeous. The audience who had been waiting in line rushed in, increasing the upper limit to 50,000 viewers. The sudden increase in the number of viewers caused the network to lag for a moment. The bullet screen was like an erupting volcano. Zuizhang Beishijing, what happened just now? I feel like the whole screen is lagging like a PowerPoint. Bing tang lameng, I'm lagging too. I thought the streamer would only be streaming for a short time today. Oh, what did the system announcement mean? Did the streamer finally level up again? Will there be 50,000 viewers watching the stream? Lo Siji Lianmeng, seeing the screen full of fireworks, I looked at the interface. The number of viewers has indeed increased to 50,000. Ingtao, I thought the network crashed. I was waiting in line just now, and then I suddenly came in. I wanted to complain that it was too difficult to get a spot in the streamer's streaming room. She got it once, and then she couldn't get it anymore. Linglong Mabaya to Gaju, I agree with the previous comment. I have to change several positions to get a spot every day, but I can't get it every time. Dora Ameng, TSK, are you kidding me? How can a normal person's hand speed compete with these guys who have been single for hundreds of years? Nugatang, #picknose. I seriously suspect that their hometown is in the signal tower. Jiang Pengji smiled. Although there were a lot of new viewers, the atmosphere of the live streaming room was not bad. She glanced at it and then looked at the popularity points in the background. She had a plan in mind. After a few tests, Jiang Pengji had a preliminary understanding of the system's weakness. As long as she did not deliberately seek trouble, the system could not escape from her hands. The host and the system were like two people at the opposite end of a seesaw. The popularity points in their hands were the chips in their hands. As long as Jiang Pengji maintained the balance of the seesaw or suppressed the system, the other party could not do anything to it. Instead, it would be forced into a dead end by her. For example, if Jiang Pengji refused to level up, the system could only struggle at death's door. It would get weaker day by day until its energy was exhausted. On the other hand, if Jiang Pengji had less chips than the system, or if she accidentally jumped into the trap designed by the system, what would happen then? She would be caught by the system, and if she wasn't careful, she wouldn't be able to turn the situation around. She would become its puppet, and the system could do whatever it wanted to her. If that was the case, why didn't Jiang Pengji seize the opportunity to take down the system? Because only by casting a long line could one catch a big fish. How could a person who achieved great things be attracted by the small profits before him and ignore the real big picture? Heh. Jiang Pengji curled her lips into a smile, her eyes brimming with confidence. She wanted to see how much longer the system could endure. Host, I feel like I'm about to break through. After a while, the stiff electronic voice of the system rang in her ears. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "Are you going to level up again?" "Yes." The system replied matter-of-factly, "Just like last time, I will try my best to choose the time when the host is not broadcasting to upgrade and maintain myself, so that it will not affect the host's daily broadcasting work. This upgrade is estimated to take 12 hours. Jiang Pengji nodded in approval. Before the system could heave a sigh of relief, she said, "Actually, I have something to discuss with you. I want to start the second fusion of forces." System, the other end of the line was silent for a long time. Jiang Pengji almost suspected that the system was pretending to be deaf and mute, but it finally responded. "Do you want to fuse forces now?" the system asked. "Yes, it will cost 1 million points of popularity." Jiang Pengji raised her hand and clenched her fist, her expression turning cold. This world is so chaotic. If I don't have strength, I'm not even comparable to a rootless duckweed. I'm still too weak now. Only by becoming stronger can I protect everything. The system deliberated for a while. The host's current basic force is 12 points, and the fusion force is 39 points. This combined data has far exceeded that of an ordinary person and is almost close to the critical value. The higher the level, the more points of popularity required to increase the value by 1 point. Previously, you could increase the fusion rate by 0.1% with 10,000 points. Now that you have 1 million points, you can't even reach 1%. Jiang Pengji knew that even without the system saying it. I'm mentally prepared for this. The system continued, as a qualified system, I have the obligation to remind you of one thing. Previously, it was only 10,000 points of fusion. Increasing from 30 points of fusion force to 31 points is equivalent to taking a small step for a child. Now it's directly 1 million points. The leap is too big. So? Jiang Pengji asked the system. The safest thing to do is to fuse them in batches. That will minimize the risk. Jiang Pengji pretended to think seriously, but in the end, she rejected the system's suggestion. No need. Since I've chosen to take the risk, I naturally have a certain level of confidence. Isn't it just a gamble with my life? I don't think I'll be easily defeated. Jiang Pengji had learned the term defeated from the audience in the streaming room. Don't worry about me. The system's suggestion was good, but Jiang Pengji knew that it would not be as easy to talk to as it was now. It was highly likely that it would turn from guest to host. Didn't the system do the same after its first upgrade? It used the mission of saving Meng Liang to test and threaten her. If she had not resisted it, the situation would have been different. Therefore, she needed to increase her bargaining chips before the system's second upgrade. System, who the hell would worry about you? It was snowing heavily now. The snow from before had melted and turned into ice. The road was very difficult to walk on. To ensure safety, they set up several bonfires in the open area and prepared to spend the night there. Jiang Pengji instructed Takshu and rode into the forest. Even Jiang Pengji didn't dare to say that she could easily endure the pain of the fusion of force. If they did it in the carriage, it might cause a commotion. It would be hard to explain if someone saw her grimacing and in pain. This is fine. Jiang Pengji's night vision was excellent. She rode White to the nearest stream. Host, are you sure you want to use 1 million points to continue the fusion? A. Yes. B. Think about it. Decisively choose A. With the previous experience, Jiang Pengji was not anxious. Instead, she sat quietly by the stream and waited for the fusion to begin. As expected, after a few breaths, a sharp pain without warning swept through her body. It was fierce and intense, completely different from the first fusion. She secretly gritted her teeth and grabbed the pebbles by the stream with both hands. She clenched her fingers so hard that she left finger marks on them. The moonlight was as cold as water. When it fell on her face, it reflected a ghastly white color. She looked like a lifeless ghost. The color of her lips turned from green to purple. Because of the pain, her eyeballs were wide open. The corners of her eyes hurt as if they were about to split open. Chapter 316. Kacha. The pebble in Jiang Pengji's hand shattered. Her fingertips split open and blood stained the gravel. She curled up in pain. Her consciousness was attacked by waves of pain, but she still stubbornly held on to the last trace of clarity. Her lower lip was bitten and there were several teeth marks. She could not help but groan from the corner of her mouth. In just a few breaths, wriggling blood-colored snakes slowly flowed out of her eyes, nostrils, and ears. The air gradually filled with the smell of blood. White was an intelligent warhorse from the northern borderline. Jiang Pengji's current situation made it anxious. Its hooves kept rubbing against the ground. Plop. The sound of a heavy object falling into the water was heard, causing a large splash. It turned out that Jiang Pengji's entire body had fallen into the stream. White snorted and anxiously circled a few times on the spot. Then, it turned its head and ran out the way it came from. It was already late at night. Except for the servants and boy servants on night duty, most of the people were already asleep. The scholars who liked to read at night were still in the carriage reading slowly by candlelight. Lu Jing fell asleep after eating and drinking. He grabbed the bedding and rolled himself into a spring roll. Wei Ci wore a cloak and leaned against the carriage to read carefully. Perhaps it was because he had had a different experience, but now that he was going back and reading these familiar contents, he actually had a different understanding of them. Seriously. After reading a book, Wei Ci gradually felt sleepy. Just as he was about to sleep with his clothes on, he saw Lu Jing sprawled out on his back. His sleeping posture was extremely carefree and took up more than half of the carriage, making him feel as if he had nowhere to put his feet. He should not have taken in Lu Zheng, who was friendly with him. Who knew that his sleeping posture was so bad? He despised it. Is there the sound of horse hooves? He was about to wake Lu Zheng up when he vaguely heard something. He lifted the curtain of the carriage. There was no movement from the servants on night duty outside. He could not help but wonder if he had heard wrongly. He muttered in a low voice. Maybe I heard wrongly. After a while, the servant on night duty stood up. He widened his eyes and said, "Isn't that Lu Langjuan's horse?" White's whole body was snow white. There was not a single strand of hair. It was vigorous, and it was a warhorse from the northern borderline with excellent bloodlines. It was very eye-catching at night. Lu Langjun. Upon hearing this form of address, Wei Si's heart skipped a beat. He put on the cloak that was draped over his shoulders and tightened it around him. Then, he took the hand warmer and alighted from the carriage. What happened? There were 5 servants on night watch, and one of them had already stepped forward to take the reins from Big White's neck and lead the agitated Big White over. Your servant doesn't know either. It seems like something happened when the horse came from that direction. Wei Si frowned and stepped forward. Big White rubbed its head against his chest and snorted a few times, looking very impatient. Could it have discovered something? Wei Si raised his eyebrows, an ominous premonition rising in his heart. This horse was naturally arrogant. During the day, many people looked at it enviously. No matter how much they tried to please it, it was too lazy to bite them. If Dabai had discovered something, he would have gone to find his master instead of wasting time with an outsider. You guys stay here, I'll follow the horse to take a look. If I don't come back in an hour, then inform master and the others. Although Wei Si was a scholar, he was also proficient in the 6 arts of a gentleman. His horsemanship and archery skills were not as good as those of a military general, but they were not just for show. Sorry for offending you. Take me to your master. Wei Si stroked Big White's mane, grabbed its reins, and flipped onto the horse's back. Surprisingly, Big White did not throw him off. Looking at Big White and Wei Si, the servants looked at each other and could only do as they were told. The stream was not very far from where the carriages were camping. It would only take a quarter of an hour to travel back and forth on Big White. Wei Si thought that something had happened to Jianghu. He was so scared that his lips turned white. He almost got thrown off by Big White. However, there were many trees in front of him, so he could not see clearly. But he was not deaf. The sound of the water was clearly, before Wei Si came over, Jianghu had already woken up from the stream. She was in good spirits, but her legs were still weak. It was difficult for her to even lift her fingers. Relying on her good health, she simply soaked in the cold stream water to adjust her breathing. She found that there were many bloodstains on her skin. She raised her hands and splashed the water on her arms and neck. She used her clothes to clean the bloodstains. Hearing the familiar sound of horse hooves, Jianghu raised her eyebrows but did not turn around immediately. Who is it? She asked. Her voice was hoarse and languid. Separated by the trees, Wei Si shifted his gaze to another place, but his ears were slightly red. Your horse ran to the campsite just now. I thought that something had happened to you, so I rushed over, Jianghu said. I found the stream here clean during the day, so I sneaked over to take a bath in the middle of the night. I've embarrassed myself in front of you, Zixiao. Wei Si's face was livid. He stood beside Big White, not knowing whether to leave or stand. Since you're fine, it's not convenient for me to stay here any longer. Others did not know Jianghu's gender, but Wei Si knew. He did not intend to let others know that he knew. Wait a minute. Jianghu stopped Wei Si and said embarrassedly, I sneaked out and left in a hurry. I forgot to bring a change of clothes. Can I trouble Zixiao to bring Big White back and ask Takshu to help prepare a set of clothes? Hang it on Big White's horse ornament. It will send it over. Wei Si's expression was completely unsightly. So, Big White didn't run to the campsite to ask for help, but to bring a set of clothes for Jianghu. He glanced at Dabai. Dabai also turned around and looked at him innocently with its big, watery eyes. Wei Si's face was cold. He turned over and mounted the horse. I understand. He always felt that all his worries seemed to have been fed to the dogs. Big White snorted and the horse galloped away. It was not as hurried as when it came. Hearing the sound of the horse's hooves getting further away, Jianghu heaved a sigh of relief. She raised her head and leaned against the stream. The stream was flowing. It was not frozen, but it did not hinder its bone-chilling coldness. Fortunately, this kind of coldness was nothing to Jianghu now. Looking at her personal attributes panel, she smiled weakly. She did not care about other things, but basic strength, 31 points, combined strength plus 56 points, was enough to prove that she had made the right choice. She raised her hand to look at her arm. On the surface, there did not seem to be many changes, but she could feel the power contained within. After washing a little with the stream, Big White ran over with a bag of clothes on its back. Seeing that the lower edge of the clothes was close to the ankles, Jianghu frowned. The clothes are a little small. She knew that this was due to the increase in her height. After the combined strength, the jeans would also slowly be optimized. Her height was a little longer, which was also the external appearance after the optimization. Fortunately, the change was not big. Moreover, this body was only 12 years old. It was not even 13 years old yet, so it was normal for it to grow quickly. Apart from that, there was another advantage to this change. Due to physiological reasons, females were on average much shorter than males. This was especially true for Lu Shi's body. Now that she had grown taller, her height would not be too conspicuous when she appeared in men's clothing. Jianghu tucked her wet hair behind her head and turned over to mount the horse. Chapter 317. Langyao was indeed a place of outstanding people. It was still chilly in other places, but here, the wind was already warm, and the flowers were blooming. It was early spring, and the scenery was perfect. The spring wind blew on people's bodies, stirring up some lazy warmth. The girl, who loved to be beautiful, had already changed into light spring clothes. The fresh and tender colors made her look more delicate than flowers. Her black hair was tied up high, decorated with 1 or 2 blooming flowers. Even if she didn't put on any makeup and didn't wear any makeup, she still couldn't hide her vigorous youthfulness. Girls loved to be beautiful, and the young Langjuns were no exception. Their clothes fluttered in the wind, and their sleeves carried a light fragrance. Jingle, jingle, a few bells knocked against each other rhythmically, following the vigorous steps of the horses. The crisp sound of the bells accompanied the sound of the horses' hooves, like a cheerful song. Anyone who heard it could feel the owner's leisurely and contented mood at the moment. A commotion came from the city gate, and people could faintly be heard discussing and cheering among the crowd. Is that the big worm that ate people in Jianghu village? Hey, it looks scary. Yes, look at its size, it must be at least 6 stones. No wonder it could eat so many people and cause so much harm that even the government can't do anything about it. My wife is from Jianghu village. I heard that this big worm has eaten 4 children. The parents of the children went into the mountains to get rid of it, but they were eaten until only bones were left. I don't know how to describe that horrible scene. Just looking at it makes me shiver and my legs go weak. Many people gathered on both sides of the street to see what was going on. They were whispering to the tiger that was carried by 4 strong men. At this time, a slightly smaller tiger was carried in. Those who were knowledgeable immediately recognized that it was a female tiger. Wow, I thought it was a big worm that harmed Jianghu village. I didn't expect it to be a couple, a male and a female. Not only that, look at the stomach of that female worm. It's abnormally shriveled, like a female horse that just gave birth. The crowd was in a heated discussion. The customers in the tea houses on both sides heard the commotion below and poked their heads out. They were shocked by the 2 dead insects. Even though they were already dead, the power of their bodies was still enough to make people's souls fly out of their bodies. From the outside, the two tigers looked very complete, and there was dried black blood in their eyes. Even if they were not experienced hunters, everyone knew how the two tigers died. Someone must have shot him in the eye with an arrow, piercing through his brain and killing him on the spot. His technique was clean and neat, and he did his best to ensure the integrity of the two tiger skins. Many commoners were envious of him. A scholar said, "It's rare to see such a majestic insect. I don't know who the person who killed him is, but he is said to be incomparably brave." You don't know? His friend was surprised. He leaned against the window of the tea house on the second floor and looked outside as if he was looking for someone. "What's wrong? Is there something I don't know?" His friend smiled elegantly and said, "If these two big insects were really harming Jianghu village, the one who killed them must be that person." "What do you mean?" The scholar was puzzled. "You might not know, but didn't the county governor organize a gathering a few days ago and invite all the scholars to discuss the world situation?" The scholar was still suspicious and said, "That day, I got a little sick and caught a cold, so I didn't go over." "I wonder what happened at the gathering?" His friend smiled and closed his fan in a carefree manner. He sighed and said, "That day at the gathering, a scholar said that military men bring disaster to the country. He said that Nanxing was almost destroyed by the four factions of Nanman. Other than the fact that the four factions of Nanman were powerful, the other reason was that the king of Nanxing trusted the military too easily. This caused the court to be unstable and the internal problems were not solved. The four factions of Nanman took advantage of the situation and attacked the city. Although Nanxing was also Dongqing's enemy, they were brothers of the same father. They would not feel comfortable if they were attacked by outsiders. Whether it was Nanxing or Dongqing, they were not willing to admit that Nanxing's territory was cut off again and again because they were weak. Once upon a time, the Xia dynasty annexed the 9 states and brought peace to the 4 seas. No one in the 9 states dared to oppose them. How majestic was that? The 5 states were all split from the Xia dynasty. They all claimed to be legitimate and had 5 sons from the same father. Who was willing to admit that they were defeated by the foreign races because they were weak? It must be because they were careless and had hidden dangers, so outsiders took advantage of them. The blame was pushed back and forth, and in the end, it was the generals. Unlike Dongqing, which valued culture and restrained martial arts, Nanxing's attitude towards martial arts was still acceptable. According to Dongqing's harsh standards, Nanxing's treatment could even be considered as generous. However, the monarch of Nanxing courted disaster. After forming a marriage alliance with the 4 factions of Nanman, he directly and indirectly caused the deaths of many generals who were truly loyal to the monarch. He handed over the military power to his own relatives and eunuchs who were worthy of trust. However, these people secretly colluded with the 4 factions of Nanman for some benefits. Nanxing's army was fighting at the front lines. Whatever deployment they made, the confidant of the monarch of Nanxing would sell this information to the 4 factions of Nanman. Under such circumstances, they could still win unless the 4 factions of Nanman were all blind and fought by instinct. Anyway, no matter what, the blame was unanimously pushed to the generals. This indirectly caused Dongqing to suppress the generals even more. The scholar listened to his friend's retelling and felt that there was nothing wrong with this. However, he still could not understand. What did the conflict at the assembly have to do with the big worm? His friend continued, that scholar had just finished speaking when someone smashed a cup on his head. His forehead was bleeding. The scholar sucked in a breath of cold air. This was an assembly organized by the county chief. Who had the guts to make a move in public? How dare he make a move? His friend explained to him, saying, not only did that person make a move, he even said something impudent, almost angering that scholar to the point that 1 Buddha was born and 2 Buddhas ascended to heaven. Guess what that person said? The scholar's interest was instantly piqued. He asked, what did he say? His friend thought about it and imitated the person's tone. You're just a chicken. Don't talk about smashing a cup on you. Even if someone slashed you twice, you'd still come back for me to see. You're eloquent with your words, but you're just an embroidered pillow that looks good but is useless. If you have the energy to talk here, why don't you go home and recuperate? Don't let your wife complain that you can't lay eggs again. When the scholar heard this, he suddenly felt a toothache. These words are too vicious. His friend nodded in agreement as if he had just survived a disaster. It was not vicious at all. The situation was almost out of control. That scholar had abandoned his manners and rolled up his sleeves, ready to fight with his life. Needless to say, that scholar did not gain any advantage. Chapter 318. The scholar thought about it carefully. It seemed that there was nothing wrong with what he said. But the problem was, did this matter have anything to do with the two big insects? His friend continued, because the troublemaker Lang Jun has some background, the county chief did not want to make a big deal out of it. He hoped that the two of them could settle their grievances privately. The troublemaker said, "Yesterday, I heard from the girls in Wangchun Tower that there were man-eating insects in Zhangjiang village that were harming the people. Do you think that your mouth is so scary? Why don't we make a bet? Let's see if your mouth can kill those insects, or if the bow in my hand can make them die. You always trample on martial artists. How did the founder of Dongqing start his career? Forgetting his ancestors." The scholar smacked his lips. He suddenly felt that although the troublemaker Lang Jun's mouth was a little poisonous, he was a real person. Not to mention anything else, just the fact that he had the guts to kill the insects as a bet showed how heroic he was. Then these two big insects, were they hunted by that Lang Jun? Probably 8 or 9 out of 10. His friend nodded. "I have a good friend studying at Langyi Academy. He has heard about that person. He was born with great strength and was strong enough to lift a cauldron. It is not impossible for him to kill two big insects. On the other hand, I heard that the scholar has been loitering in the brothel. He is lazy and has a lot of wives and concubines in his backyard. He can't even ride a horse or draw a bow, let alone kill the insects." As soon as he finished speaking, a few strong men had already carried the two tigers onto the street with some difficulty. The people on both sides of the street were curious. It was as if a cat was scratching their hearts, but they did not dare to go forward for fear that the tigers would come back to life. Ding, ding, the crisp sound of the bell was even clearer. It came from afar. The scholar could not help but open his eyes wide and stared at the source of the sound. A teenager who was about 15 or 16 years old was leisurely sitting on the back of a horse. He did not even hold the reins. The horse he was riding on was snow-white with strong limbs. What a handsome warhorse! The scholar sighed. The teenager on the horse seemed to have heard his compliment. He looked up and caught his gaze, which made the scholar a little embarrassed. At this moment, he finally saw the young man clearly. It was different from the wide-sleeved Confucian robes that scholars like to wear nowadays. The sleeves were very narrow, but it was also different from what the foreign tribes wore. From the appearance alone, it still retained the distinct characteristics of Dongqing. It should have been modified from the basis of the Confucian robes to make it more convenient for movement. The young man wore a simple and neat silver ring around his neck. 2 sachets and other accessories hung from his waist. He wore a pair of brown, wide-toothed wooden clogs and a pair of snow-white socks. The weather was not very warm, and people with weak bodies would need to put on 2 more spring clothes before going out. However, this young man did not seem to notice, and his clothes were light and simple. Looking at the young man's face again, his dark and heroic eyebrows were slightly raised, making his entire face look lively. As for those eyes, it was unknown whether it was a psychological effect, but when the scholar met the other party's gaze, he suddenly felt guilty and wanted to avoid it. It was as if he could see through everything, and no one dared to look at him directly. The bridge of his nose was high, and his thin lips were slightly curled. He seemed to be smiling but did not, giving people a sense of closeness. Even the most picky person could only say that he was a handsome young man when looking at this plain face without any makeup. The snow-white warhorse was also extraordinary. There was a bloody bow and arrow on the horse's back. Even though it was surrounded and discussed by so many people, it did not move at all. It was like it was taking a leisurely stroll, and its owner seemed to be at ease with the reins. The man and the horse were actually such a good match. As the scholar thought about it, he suddenly realized that the young man was holding something in his arms. Ah, that's the cub of the big worm. The people with sharp eyes widened their eyes. They realized that the thing in the young man's arms was wriggling slightly, and a head popped out. It looked like a milk cat, with its eyes slightly closed and its mouth contentedly, as if it was very comfortable to be held by the young man. However, if one looked closely, they would realize that it was not a milk cat at all, but a tiger cub that had just been born a few days ago. The young man did not care about the discussions of the people around him. He let the strong men carry the two tigers all the way to the door of a certain house. The young man looked at the plaque hanging on the door of the house. There were two gatekeepers outside looking in curiously. She rolled up her horsewhip and pointed it at the plaque. She said arrogantly, "Walk around this house a few times. Every time you walk around, you'll pay 6 more coins." The scholar and his friend, urged by their curiosity, also came over to watch the show. Seeing the young man's actions, they were suddenly stunned. The scholar felt like he was dreaming. He murmured, "This is too arrogant." Even if he was stupid and did not know who the owner of the house was, he could guess some things just by looking at the young man's actions. It turned out that the owner of the house was the family of the scholar that was choked by the young man that day, right? Asking the strong men to carry the two tigers around the house to show off. This was a slap in the face right at the door of the house. So arrogant, why don't you go to heaven? If the audience in the streaming room could hear the inner voice of the scholar, they would probably chuckle. Their streamer had always been arrogant. She stayed in the sky and never came down. Yes, the young man on the horseback was Jianghu. Lo Cg Lianmeng, #propping chin, the streamer always causes trouble. This unlucky child is probably so scared that he doesn't dare to jump out. Chun Lai, although it's not the first time I've seen the streamer being arrogant, every time I see it, I feel especially good. Dashu Xiaobing, #picking nose, what can I do? His brain is filled with too much water. The streamer is just kind enough to beat the water out of his brain. You didn't see the situation at Tianya gathering. The more you talk, the more you go overboard. It was the Nanxing king's own fault, but he has to deceive himself and push the blame onto others. Just wait and see, the current Dongqing will soon follow in Nanxing's footsteps. The bullet screen in the streaming room was densely packed. The virtual screen was more than twice as big as before. The decorations on the frame of the streaming room were also more complicated and gorgeous. Jianghu rode on the horseback. She held the horsewhip in her right hand and lightly tapped the palm of her left hand. After the few strong men walked 2 rounds around the huge house, Jianghu sneered softly. "This is courage? What a joke." Jianghu pointed at the door and said to the surrounding people who were watching the show, "Anyone with a bit of courage should rush out with a group of servants. Even if they can't win, they have to vent their anger. If everyone in Dongqing is a coward, Nanxing will be a good example. Fight with me? Pick up your own bones first, then talk. Coward. Let's go home." Jianghu cracked the whip in the air with a cold face. Then, under her control, the snake-like whip obediently retracted. That was a beautiful move. She laughed heartily and bowed to the people around her. The skin of these 2 big worms is not bad. It can be used to make a tiger skin cloak. As for the meat, if the people in the village care about it, they can come over and have a taste. Some people knew Jianghu, but some didn't. Which family's Langjun is this? Jianghu's sharp ears heard them. She turned her head to look in that direction and spoke to the people who spoke. Chapter 319. Those families with ordinary backgrounds would only be able to taste some meat during festivals or on important days. Most of them would be raising their own hens. They wouldn't even be willing to go to the market to buy pork, let alone eating the meat of the giant worm. The audience in the streaming room saw that Jiang Pengji got someone to skin the two tigers and divide their meat on the spot. To Siji Zhiwu, host, are you kidding me? If you did this to us, you would be called over for tea. Tudou Nyo Gafen, wild animals are now protected by the country. Host, what you did was not just inviting them over for tea. You got shot, okay? But in the host's world, people hunt based on their abilities. If they like to eat, they eat. There's nothing wrong with that. Lo Siji Lianmeng, ha ha ha, you're saying that the host doesn't love animals? She doesn't even love humans. If she gets mad, she'll twist off a human's head for you to see. Nongfu Shangquan Yudiangshuan, they're just a group of indignant keyboard warriors. Didn't you see that the host has been too lazy to care about them for so many years? The more I care about them, the more they jump around. Ignoring them makes me proud. To put it bluntly, if the host was not in a different dimension from them, but in the same world, they wouldn't even dare to fart if they had the chance to face her, let alone scold her with the keyboard. Cafeteria auntie, you're just a group of idiots. You're using your own way of thinking to judge people from another world. Are you crazy? Didn't you see the introduction clearly? These two tigers ate so many people and caused harm. The host is saving people by killing them. As for skinning and selling their meat, are the chicken, duck, and fish you eat everyday vegetarian dishes? You're overflowing with love and there's nowhere to vent it. What a fu do, if you have the time to scold here, why don't you turn around and search for fur? A group of people who are more sages than saints. The audience had just sent the message over when a bunch of insults and crusades came from behind. In Hua Nation, where the audience was from, people would even criticize a certain place for eating dog meat, let alone a live broadcast of hunting a tiger, manually skinning it, and even publicly dismembering the tiger couple's carcasses and giving them to the people as a dish for dinner. Cruel and inhumane. Ishuang Zhuzi, I can't stand it anymore. I've never seen such a cruel executioner. Do you even have the heart to hunt animals? Animal Protection Association, skinning? That's so cruel. Didn't the country advocate that if there was no trade, there would be no killing? How could this kind of dog food like live broadcast room be open for so long and not be blocked by 404? I have already reported you to the top right, no thanks. A bunch of big grapes, there will be retribution for killing animals. I hope that the host's entire family dies, that her sons become eunuchs, and that her daughters become prostitutes. Host is a pig, you're a beast worse than a pig or a dog. This kind of trash host should just die. Host is spicy chicken, go to hell. Go to hell. Go to hell. These insults were still considered light, but the content of the more excessive greetings to the 18 generations of ancestors was extremely unbearable to look at. Jiang Pengji couldn't be bothered with him and didn't open her mouth to refute. Just as the other live stream viewers had said, the more they paid attention to these clowns, the more they jumped. Jiang Pengji had always dealt with it coldly. In other words, her brain simply could not process the information that was even more worthless than rubbish. However, her fans who supported her would not give up. They directly started a war of words in the streaming room, and it became a chaotic mess. Regarding her good mentality, a viewer who had followed the streaming room for more than 3 years sighed with emotion. Pepsi Cola, I suddenly have a lot of respect for the host's psychological ability. Nowadays, online violence is getting more and more severe. Many bright and beautiful public figures have been forced to suffer from depression because of the pressure of public opinion. The host has been cursed by the keyboard warriors for more than 3 years, but her mentality is still so good. Jiang Pengji was using a lotus to wrap up the meat that had been divided and distributed to the people who came to join in the fun. She caught a glimpse of this from the corner of her eye and suddenly smiled. Host V, it's not that I have a good mentality. In fact, my temper is very bad. The reason why I didn't refute them is because they haven't completely evolved. Why should I care about the language of a group of non-human beings? Secondly, if the feces in the toilet stinks you, will you step on them or bite them? The most correct solution is to flush it directly. Why bother so much? It was also because they were in different dimensions. If they were face to face, she would beat up the whole family of those who dared to speak rudely to her. Naturally, Jiang Pengji's arrogant words and actions directly touched the sensitive points of those people. They wished they could stay in the streaming room 24 hours a day and use all kinds of unbearable words to greet her. Jiang Pengji calmly divided all the meat and even gave the bones to the people to take home to make soup. She didn't spare any attention to them at all. As for the 2 intact tiger skins, they would be taken care of when they got home. She placed the 2 tiger skins on the back of the horse and rode White back leisurely. She bought a small courtyard with 2 entrances in Langi. It was very close to Langi Academy, so it was convenient for her to go to school or visit friends and relatives. Lang Jun, you're back. As soon as she arrived at the door was already opened and a gatekeeper in brown clothes walked out. She threw White's reins to the gatekeeper. Yes, White ran a lot today. Feed it more high-quality horse grass. White seemed to understand her words. It happily snorted and wanted to stretch its head to rub against her. Don't worry, Lang Jun. Your servant will do it now. Oh yes, find a skilled craftsman to deal with these 2 tiger skins. I plan to give them to my sister as a dowry. The tiger skin was not very expensive, but the 2 tiger skins that Jiang Pengji peeled were very good. They were bright and shiny, which was really rare. Even if they were given to Lu Shi's daughter as a dowry, it would not be embarrassing. It would be a good story to say that a brother took care of his sister. The gatekeeper listened and valued it even more. He did not dare to neglect it. Jiang Pengji was humming a light song. She was in a good mood. Takshu, are the luggage ready? As soon as she entered the door, Takshu came out to greet her. There was a thin layer of sweat on her forehead. It's ready. The things to bring to the second Nyangzi are also ready. Takshu was wearing a simple dress. She was even more beautiful now. She had the charm of a mature woman. Lang Jun, you're back from hunting. Do you want to have a hot bath? There's no hurry. I'll bathe later. Jiang Pengji took Takshu's handkerchief and wiped her face. Wuma Jun has been getting more and more attention from the government these years. He has become the most favored son besides the crown prince. The court officials are all watching him. My sister is going to marry him and become his wife. The Lu family can't slack off. The dowry doesn't need to be outstanding, but it can't be a joke. Chapter 320. Langi was a prosperous place with a good business atmosphere. There were many good things there. Coincidentally, Jiang Pengji had been studying in Langi for 3 years. The second lady wrote a letter to Jiang Pengji to help with the preparations. It was also to show that the Lu residents valued the concubine's daughter and the marriage. Because Lu Shi was in Chongzhou, he had no time to send the concubine's daughter off. This task naturally fell on Jiang Pengji's shoulders. Of course, even if Lu Shi was free, he would not give the concubine's daughter so much face. Moreover, she was not even his daughter. Takshu sighed. Lang Jun treats the second Nyangzi so well. Jiang Pengji listened and smiled without saying a word. Would she treat a concubine's sister well that she had never met? TSK, a weasel paying a visit to a chicken. What good intentions could there be? It was definitely not a good thing for a concubine's sister to marry Wuma Jun. Looking at Takshu's graceful figure leaving, Jiang Pengji frowned slightly. The audience in the streaming room drooled. Lo Siji Lianmeng, it's a pity. If the streamer was a man, such a delicate beauty could be kept in the room. Nongfu Shanquan Yudiangshuan, #pick nose. The streamer is not such a crazy person. Do you think everyone thinks with their lower body? Panda sigh, I also think it's a pity. She's such a beauty and she grew up with the streamer. Instead of marrying out and being defiled by the men of this era, it's better for the streamer to protect her. I think no one is better than the streamer. Faced with the stream of emotions, Jiang Pengji could not help but laugh. What was that saying again? The green bamboo snake's mouth, the wasp's tail in battle. Some blessings could not be enjoyed. As she was thinking, Takshu, who had already left, entered the room again. She bowed and said, Langjun. Wei Langjun came to the residence to send a visitation card. Zixiao. What is he doing here at this hour? Jiang Pengji's brows furrowed. She secretly thought about Wei Si's purpose for coming to the residence. In the 3 years that she studied in Langyi Academy, she had almost no interaction with Wei Si. He had his own circle of friends. Jiang Pengji would not take the initiative to get close to him. Moreover, he would go out for half a month to visit relatives and friends. They did not meet each other much. More than half a month ago, she vaguely heard the students of Langyi Academy mention that Wei Si had gone out again. Calculating the time, she reckoned that he had just returned. Why would he come to her residence to send a visiting card? With that in mind, she did not let them wait for long and went straight to the reception pavilion to meet Wei Si. Jiang Pengji sat down on the master's seat and said with a smile, what a rare guest. Zixiao actually took the initiative to come to my humble abode. 3 years had passed, and Wei Si was now a young man in his early 20s. Compared to 3 years ago, he looked more handsome. Probably because of the long journey, he seemed to have lost a lot of weight. The green clothes on his body actually seemed a little empty. Upon hearing the teasing, Wei Si covered his mouth with his hand and coughed lightly. The voice was slightly hoarse and nasal. It seemed that this person was not only tired from the long journey, but also not feeling well. Did you catch a cold or something? Why don't you get a doctor to take a look? Wei Si shook his head and slowed down his breathing, suppressing the urge to cough. However, the green color under his eyes added a sickly look to his face. No matter how one looked at it, he did not look fine. He said, I'm fine. It's just that I accidentally caught a cold the day before yesterday and am feeling a little unwell. Jiang Pengji nodded and waited for Wei Si to state the purpose of his visit. Sure enough, Wei Si had his own purpose for visiting. Lanting, I heard that you're going to send off your sister's marriage to Shangjing. After all, they were classmates in the academy. Wei Si did not call Jiang Pengji so distant. Instead, he called her by her courtesy name like others did. This matter, if it can be avoided, try your best to avoid it. Jiang Pengji was puzzled and asked, Zixiao must have his reasons for saying this. I don't know why, but why can't I go? Wei Si said, 3 years ago, the government sent troops to help Nansheng. On the surface, it seemed that they were fighting and repelling the 4 factions of Nanman together with the other countries. In reality, the 4 factions of Nanman had no intention of destroying Nansheng. They only took the opportunity to retreat and occupy the conquered counties. They took the opportunity to recuperate and plan for the future. At the same time, this was also an extremely vicious plan to sow discord. Jiang Pengji said, I know about this matter. The 4 factions of Nanman stopped their attacks not because they were really defeated, but because they gave Nansheng a chance to breathe. At the same time, they disintegrated the reinforcements of the other 4 countries and provoked a conflict of interest between the other 4 countries and Nansheng. Although the other 4 countries sent troops to help Nansheng defend the last of their territory, they did not run a relief society. There was a price to pay for sending troops to help. After Nansheng was defeated, not only did they have to face all kinds of conditions from the 4 factions of Nanman, but they also had to give benefits to the reinforcements of the other 4 countries. The other 4 countries sent troops to help in name, but they also had the intention to take advantage of them. However, in the beginning, Nanman attacked ferociously. They were united against the enemy. Later, Nanman stopped attacking, and the internal reinforcement alliance was in chaos. This matter was known to the whole world, but all the countries pretended to be peaceful and righteous. They did indeed fool many fools. But, what does this matter have to do with me sending off my sister's marriage? Wei Si choked and lowered his eyelids. His expression was slightly silent. Jiang Pengji was not in a hurry. She waited for him to speak. When the spring plowing is over, Nanman will definitely make a big move. Nansheng is probably going to perish. Next, Dongqing will face the predicament of being attacked from both the north and the south, Wei Ci said. The external threat is so obvious, but there are also many internal problems. The situation in Shangjing is extremely serious. It is almost to the point of being in a state of panic. One by one, they are still living in a drunken stupor, unaware of the changes in the outside world. They are passionate about internal strife. The four princes have grown up and each has their own backing. The fight for the throne is interspersed with the increasingly serious struggle between different factions. If you go to Shangjing, I am worried that you will not be able to return. When he was anxious, he did not even address himself as Ci anymore. He directly addressed himself as I. Jiang Pengji raised her eyebrows. I will not be able to return. Don't underestimate those relatives and eunuchs. When they go crazy, they are not afraid of anyone. Jiang Pengji was calm and played with the teacup in her hand. I will consider what you said carefully. However, regarding the matter of sending off my sister's marriage, even if it is a dangerous place, I have to go. Wealth comes from danger. I don't know that those relatives and eunuchs are colluding with each other to create trouble. But don't worry, these useless fellows will not be able to touch a single hair of mine. Wei Ci pursed his lips. His expression became complicated. Jiang Pengji suddenly said, I am not that weak. I know. Then you can relax and wait for a good show. In the eyes of others, Shangjing may be a dangerous place, but for her, it was definitely the beginning of her journey to the 9 states and 4 seas. Chapter 321. Brother Ci, father is having tea in the front hall. Wei Ci came out of Jiang Pengji's house and went to visit his master's house after a short rest. Although Master Yuanjing was famous in Jiuzhou and was the most famous scholar in the world, he lived a simple life. His house was neither too big nor too small, and the scenery in the house was very casual. The scenery in the yard was arranged bit by him, and it had a natural wildness to it. He just raised his hand to knock on the door, and the door opened by itself. A slightly immature and energetic face peeked out from the door. The person who opened the door was his master's youngest daughter, who was also his most beloved daughter, Zhu Qingning. Wei Ci smiled, folded his sleeves, and said, Is this master's foresight again? Qingning directly destroyed Master Yuanjing's pretense and said playfully, No, it's obvious that Sanwu in the yard suddenly ran around happily, and father couldn't do anything about it. He then knew that brother Ci was here. It's not as powerful as you said. Sanwa was a kitten that Master Yuanjing picked up by accident. She had a difficult birth, and Wei Ci happened to be a guest in the house, so she was asked by Qingning to help. In the end, she successfully gave birth to 4 pure black kittens. It was probably because of this that Sanwa was very close to Wei Ci. Because of this, Wei Ci was often teased by a few classmates who were on good terms with him. Of course, there were also malicious mockery. Those people maliciously mocked him, saying that if he did not achieve anything in the future, he could become a midwife. Wei Ci only smiled at those malicious words and did not take it to heart. Thinking of his master drinking tea in the hall and being harassed by Sanwu in all kinds of ways, he could not help but smile. Qingning saw his expression and could not help but blush. She was a step behind and followed him with small steps. She gently bit her lower lip and asked shyly, Brother Ci, did you just come back from visiting friends? Yes, Wei Ci said, Master's birthday is at the beginning of March. I have to come back early no matter what. Qingning replied with an, oh, and said with her head down, then. Brother Ci, do you remember what the 16th of February is? 16th of February? Wei Ci was stunned. I know that the 15th of February is the flower festival. What is the 16th? Qingning revealed a disappointed expression and tried her best to conceal the unhappiness on her face. Fortunately, she had already arrived at the front hall, so she bowed her head and hurriedly excused herself. Wei Ci did not understand. Were the thoughts of this child so difficult to understand nowadays? Master Yuanjing frowned when he saw his daughter's attitude, but he did not make it clear. Master. Wei Ci greeted. Don't stand on ceremony. Master Yuanjing held on to San Wu, who was struggling and scratching him. He tidied up his messy sleeves and looked a little embarrassed. Wei Ci held back his laughter and said, Master, if you can't carry Sanwo, then let your disciple do it and carry Sanwo on your behalf. Just as he finished speaking, Master Yuanjing let go of him. The three of them rushed into Wei Ci's embrace and found a comfortable spot to lie down. Master Yuanjing secretly twitched his mouth. Another one was seduced by a young man. Even an old man was despised by him. I saw you chatting happily with Wunyang just now. What did you talk about? Qingning was the fifth child in the family, so many elders called her Wunyang. Wei Ci did not understand and said bluntly, Wunyang asked me if I remember what day is February 16th. Master Yuanjing sighed and said, February 16th is Wunyang's birthday. Wei Ci was stunned on the spot. His hand that was rubbing San Wu's neck stopped. He could not help but have an absurd thought. From Wei Ci's point of view, it was indeed frighteningly absurd. He still pretended not to understand and said with a smile, So, she wants to ask me for a birthday gift. Master Yuanjing's face was fierce as he exposed Wei Ci's disguise. After February 16th, Wunyang will be 13. She should be at the age to talk about marriage. At this point, it would be too much for Wei Ci to continue pretending not to understand. He could only smile bitterly. I watched Wunyang grow up, and I'm 7 or 8 years older than her. I only see her as a younger sister. Why would I have these thoughts? I know that you live the life of an ascetic monk and don't care about these worldly matters, but Wunyang is still young. Master Yuanjing paused and lowered his voice to ask Wei Ci, I'm happy to see this happen, but it depends on your wishes. After all, Wei Ci was a student that he liked. Master Yuanjing could be said to have watched Wei Ci grow up and knew his temperament. It would be best if he could recruit him as a son-in-law. He also loved Wunyang, who was an old woman. As an old father, he naturally hoped that she would live a good life. Wei Ci was shocked. San Wu, who was in his arms, noticed the change in his emotions. She used her paw to pat Wei Ci and meowed a few times. I don't mean that. Wei Ci shook his head and said, Moreover, I don't want to harm her. In fact, Wei Ci almost got married when he was 15 years old. It was just that when the two families exchanged cards, the bride was so scared that she broke off the engagement. Not only did he break off the engagement, his reputation was almost completely ruined. Those who were still willing to be friends with him were all true friends. Wei Ci treasured them very much. No matter which family it was, if they saw Wei Ci's horoscope, who would dare to marry him? Master Yuanjing secretly rolled his eyes. Wei Ci's excuses could fool the ignorant people, but it was not enough to fool him. Those who believed in the horoscope would naturally be restrained, but those who did not believe in it would naturally be unaffected. Master Yuanjing sighed, Fine, I won't be an annoying person who will break up a loving couple. Wei Ci's expression froze. He seemed to have thought of something and wanted to avoid it. Little girls are the most fickle. They like certain things very quickly. Once there is a substitute, they will change their feelings very quickly, Master Yuanjing said faintly. It's almost the flower festival. When the time comes, ask your mistress to find someone who is as good-looking as you for Wunyang. I reckon that this matter will be over. Wei Ci was slightly embarrassed. Was it his fault for being good-looking? He should look for his parents for this matter. However, Master Yuanjing had made his attitude clear, which made Wei Ci slightly relieved. He had lied just now. He did not treat Qingning as a sister. He simply treated her as a daughter or granddaughter. Considering the issue of seniority, he changed his words. Wei Ci and Master Yuanjing talked for a while before Mistress called him over. She said that she had something to tell him. Master Yuanjing watched Wei Ci leave with Sanwu in his arms. He was silent for a while. His gaze turned to the screen at the side of the hall. Did you hear that? Qingning pouted. Her eyes were filled with tears. They were bloodshot, and there were tear stains on her face. You shouldn't have such thoughts. Cut them off early. I will find you a real good husband. Be good. There are many good men in the world. Although not all of them are as good as me, there are many who are more filial than Zixiao. Master Yuanjing loved his youngest daughter, but he was not without principles. Only Wei Ci was a little troublesome. I don't believe that Brother C's horoscope will harm his wife, children, parents, teachers, and friends. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of your father either. But there is someone in his heart. You can't squeeze in. Why bother? When Qingning heard that, she suddenly started crying again. Chapter 322. All right. Wunyang, don't cry. When it comes to marriage, it's all about fate. There's no need to force it. Master Yuanjing patted Qingning and allowed the old woman to wipe her tears on his clothes. Qingning was a stubborn girl. When she found out that Wei Ci did not like her because he had someone else in his heart, she felt indignant. Elder brother Ci is already 21 years old now. The youngest people of his age are already married, and the earlier children can already read and write. Who on earth has seduced his heart? Qingning pursed her lips, and her eyes were filled with tears, as if she was about to cry in the next second. The young girl was very innocent. She had never thought of forcing Wei Ci to like her. She just felt that the person she liked was good in every aspect. Others should like him like her. Although it would be uncomfortable, it would be best if the person she liked was happy. If there was someone else in Wei Ci's heart, why was he not married? Master Yuanjing was slightly troubled by this question. It depends on fate. When fate is right, it will happen naturally. Could it be that the person is younger than me? Qingning twisted her handkerchief and pouted. Older than you. Master Yuanjing said, don't cry. Wipe your tears. If outsiders see you like this, it will look bad. Older than her? Qingning suddenly felt even sadder. If he was older than her, did it mean that he was about to reach marriageable age? Was Wei Ci waiting for him to reach marriageable age? Who is that person? Qingning asked. I want to see. She was not jealous. Instead, she was more competitive and curious. As the youngest daughter of Wei Ci's teacher, was her relationship with Wei Ci not considered close? She had such an advantage, but he still did not like her. Instead, he liked someone else. The young girl felt uncomfortable. I'm afraid that if you see him, you will feel even more uncomfortable. Master Yuanjing sighed. When the time is right, you will naturally know who that person is. I will find you someone of similar age, looks, and talent. He will let our Wunyang live happily. Qingning nodded with tears in her eyes. She was a little emotional. It's almost time for the flower festival. When the time comes, you must tell your father if you see any handsome man. Although the atmosphere in Dongqing was getting stricter and stricter with the restrictions on women, Master Yuanjing's thoughts were not on the same level as those of the secular world. Even though it was a blind marriage, Master Yuanjing could not bear to see his daughter suffer. Choosing a son-in-law was like choosing a pair of shoes. The daughter would know if the shoes fit. If she liked them and the father was satisfied, then it would be a good marriage. Qingning was still a little sad, but she was a young girl after all. She was easily shy when it came to matters related to her marriage. Biting her lip, she responded in a low voice. Wei Ci had his dinner at Master Yuanjing's residence before he left. It was just that Sanwo was rather resentful of him for being away from home for so long, and only after tearing his sleeves did it loosen its claws reluctantly. Wei Ci's mistress carried Sanwo in her arms and stroked its fur. She sent Wei Ci to the door and covered her sleeves with a chuckle as she looked at his miserable appearance. The flower festival is coming soon. Go back and prepare some brighter clothes. If you were to wear this, which lady would take a fancy to you? Mistress looked at Wei Ci lovingly. Although she was old, she had a good attitude and still looked young. Wei Si's cheeks turned red. He was so teased that he was speechless. When an elder teased a junior, should he not be shy and accept it? Should he explode on the spot? After leaving Master Yuanjing's residence, Wei Si's mind was filled with the words, "Flower Festival," as if he was possessed. After a while, he felt that something was not right. Could it be that I forgot something? Wei Si was puzzled. He carefully thought about the Flower Festival. 12th of February. The birthday of 100 flowers. Birthday? Wait. The Flower Festival was not her birthday? Wei Si seemed to recall something, and his expression changed slightly. The Flower Festival was the day when 100 flowers were born. It was also a good day for young men and women of the right age to go out for an outing. The girls in the boudoir also let go of their usual modesty and began to worry about what color of clothes they should wear on that day and what popular makeup they should put on. Although the young men were not so fussy, they were faintly anxious and tried to show their best side on that day. Jiang Pengji was a little bored on this day that was filled with a strange atmosphere. She was pulled up from the bed by Takshu. She rinsed her mouth and washed her face in a daze. Then, a bowl of clear broth noodles was placed in front of her. It's longevity noodles again. Jiang Pengji looked at the thin noodles in the bowl, which were of the same thickness and as thin as hair. She suddenly became energetic. Takshu sighed and said, "I can understand that you don't want to hold a big birthday celebration. After all, many things are inconvenient when you are away from home. But you still have to eat this longevity noodles. Finish it in one breath and can't stop. It means longevity. That's what Madam specially told me." Jiang Pengji did not need to taste it to know that there was no seasoning in the bowl of noodles. It was boiled in water, which was bland and unpalatable. "If you don't eat it, the noodles will burn," Takshu urged. Jiang Pengji closed her eyes and picked up the bowl. She picked up the noodles and stuffed the longevity noodles into her mouth. She even finished the soup. That's right. Lang Jun will definitely live a long, long life. Takshu smiled and put away the bowl and chopsticks. Only Jiang Pengji had a bitter face. It's too bland. The taste was simply indescribable. She could get used to Yuan Jing's unique dark afternoon tea, but she still could not accept such longevity noodles. After eating the noodles, Jiang Pengji took a shower and changed into the new clothes that Takshu prepared. The color of the new clothes was fresh and tender. From afar, it made people's eyes light up. Takshu was quite gratified, but then she sighed. It's such a good day today. Why are you sighing? Takshu helped her tidy up her clothes and hung all kinds of accessories, such as sachets and pendants. You're already 15 years old. If Master didn't insist that you dress up as a man, you should have reached the marriageable age by now. You should look for a suitable husband and dress yourself up beautifully. With your appearance, which noble lady can compare with you? Why do you have to dress up as a man all the time? She seemed to realize that she had said something wrong. She quickly knelt down and begged for forgiveness. Jiang Pengji's expression did not change. She said, "I quite like it this way." She bent down and helped Takshu up. "We're like a family. You don't have to be so distant." Jiang Pengji was 1.7 meters tall. She was half a head taller than Takshu, and she was not inferior to men of the same age. Although her appearance was slightly feminine, she actually looked more like a man than most men in this era where men wore flowery hairpins and powdered their hair. Speaking of reaching the marriageable age, Sister Takshu is not young anymore. If you have someone you like, Lanting will definitely settle it for you. Xuanmei was in love with Su Ku. She was willing to wait for him and drag it on, but Takshu could not drag it on any longer at her age. Takshu was stunned. She immediately lowered her head and wanted to change the topic. Lanting really treats you as family. If you have any difficulties, just tell me, Jiang Pengji said with a smile. Jiang Pengji said with a smile. Takshu burst out laughing. Your servant's life is better than that of a rich merchant's wife. What difficulties do I have? She took the sandalwood fan and passed it to Jianghu. Come back early. You still have to leave tomorrow. Don't be blinded by the foxes outside. Otherwise, I won't let you go. Okay. Chapter 323. The flower festival was the birthday of 100 flowers. Young girls in their prime wore bright clothes and had flowers painted between their eyebrows. They walked gracefully, surrounded by maids, and worshipped the flower god. In the words of the audience in the streaming room, it was a day full of dog abuse. Spring is coming, and everything is full of life. What a good day for young men and women to tell each other their hearts, and single dogs continue to cry. Jianghu sat on a tree branch. There was a gathering in the distance. The young, beautiful, and energetic girls were indescribably beautiful under the spring sun. Not only did they attract Jianghu's attention, but they also attracted the gazes of a group of young nobles. White was chewing the weeds that had sprouted on the ground. He spat it out after chewing, then went on to harm another patch of tender grass. She smiled and lifted her foot to touch White's mane with the tip of her toe. It walked away in disgust. Jianghu smiled and talked to White. You're not young anymore. Do you want me to find you a partner? How many cubs do you want? White squinted and made a sound as if it was mocking her. She did not understand horse language, but the little angel in the streaming room seemed to have learned the language and helped her translate. Yekaken, White's voice, my stupid master, how many days have you not washed your feet? Wadidi and Dudii, wrong. White is obviously a single dog, and you want to mock me? Wicked people. Renjong Chi too, this young lady is very popular. I just noticed a strange horse trying to flirt with Dubai. Jianghu secretly rolled her eyes. Was she not as attractive as the horse, Whitey? She leaned on the tree branch and closed her eyes to rest. Because of the terrain, the air in Langyao was warm and humid. The pear blossoms that only bloomed in March were now all over the branches. When the spring breeze blew, petals would rustle and fall. She leaned against the tree trunk and propped her legs up. One hand was on her knee, and the other was holding the wooden clogs that she took off. Her feet were only wearing snow-white socks. Half of her body was hidden in the pear blossoms. If one did not look carefully, one would not notice that there was a person lying on the tree. A cool breeze blew, and the pear blossoms rustled and fell. Jianghu could vaguely hear a conversation in a low voice. Wunyang, did you really take things too hard and reveal your thoughts to your father? The girl's voice was sweet, but it was so sweet that it made people feel sick. Dad is an open-minded person. If I tell him, he will help me decide. The voice of the girl called Wunyang was a little hesitant and dejected. But brother Ci already has someone else in his heart, and father doesn't agree either. He asked me to take advantage of the flower festival to find someone else I like. The girl with the sweet voice pouted in dissatisfaction. How can you do this? Then do you know who that person likes? Wunyang looked slightly worried. I don't know. I asked my father, but he refused to tell me. He only said that he would naturally know when the time is right. The girl tilted her head, thought for a while, and said with certainty, then he's definitely not a decent person. Wunyang did not understand. She asked doubtfully, why do you say that he's not a decent person? You don't understand. Wei Langjun is now 21 years old. If he really has someone he likes, he definitely won't delay it like this. Unless the girl's identity is not good, for example, he doesn't have the face to marry someone from that kind of place. Don't you know that all the matchmakers in Langyao County don't dare to matchmake for him? He's already in trouble. If he continues to delay it, what about the issue of heirs? After listening to her, Wunyang only understood what she meant after a long while. She suddenly blushed, and she felt a little angry. Brother Ci is not that kind of pedantic person. Even if he really likes a woman from a brothel, he won't be so concerned about his reputation. How could Wei Ci continue to let the person he liked suffer for the sake of his reputation? Wunyang could not accept someone slandering Wei Ci like that. Then he likes married women. The girl spoke before Wunyang, stopping her from speaking. All the matchmakers in Langya County can't wait to cover their noses and avoid Wei Ci. No one matchmakes for him, and his marriage is not settled. Now that a beauty like you has taken a fancy to him, he should respond happily. Why would he use the excuse that he has a sweetheart to reject you? Wunyang was a little angry. I won't allow you to say that about him. How can a gentleman covet someone else's wife and concubine? The girl pouted and said shrewdly, you're so protective of him, but he doesn't even look at you properly. You're in a hurry to get close to him, but has he ever given you any face? What's so good about Wei Ci? He's a jinx who brings misfortune to his wife and children, his parents, and his entire clan. Foolish opinion. Wunyang was so angry that her chest rose and fell violently. There was a little anger on her little face. What about Brother Ci? Look at his behavior. He respects his teachers, is friendly to his schoolmates, and treats the younger generation leniently. How can you judge him based on the 8 characters of fortune? There are many people in the world like the 8 characters of fortune of the emperor. Why is he the emperor, while others are just common people? Humph, yes. I'm ignorant. I'm not as knowledgeable as you, 5th Miss Shu. The girl was also angered. It was as if her sore spot had been hit. She retorted, you're so educated, reasonable, and considerate. You're actually sticking to a man who no one wants. That's great. You. Wunyang widened her eyes at her words. She was so angry that her fingers were trembling. No matter how bad Zixiao is, he's not someone who can be belittled by a daughter born of a commoner's wife who lives in poverty and is arranged by her official mother to be someone else's concubine. Jiang Pengji found that the 2 girls were arguing louder and louder, which seriously disturbed her sleep. She could not help but jump down from the pear tree and interrupt them. The 2 girls looked over upon hearing the sound and saw a young man in fresh clothes with a smile on his face. He was only wearing socks, and his wooden clogs were still in his hands. The girl was startled by her appearance. Thinking of what she said just now, her face turned pale. Wunyang was still a little puzzled. She asked doubtfully, concubine? You'd better be more careful in the future. It's better to stay away from such a talkative and venomous beauty who likes to judge people's hearts with sinister words. Jiang Pengji took 2 steps forward and saw through the girl's nature at a glance. She sized her up with a faint smile. She belittles Zixiao not because she really looks down on him, but because she wants to plan for herself. Huh? Wunyang was stunned. Her official mother wants her to marry a man who is old enough to be her father. She's unwilling and wants to find a better way out for herself. Zixiao is despised by others, but she doesn't have a high status and is not valued at home. How compatible are they? That's probably what she thinks. Jiang Pengji stared at the girl until her face turned pale. Her legs trembled, and her words poked at the secrets in her heart. If I hear any rumors that tarnish Zixiao's and this girl's reputation later, Jiang Pengji's expression suddenly turned cold. Guess who will spread the rumors? Wunyang was an innocent girl in the boudoir, but she had an open-minded father. She was also knowledgeable, but she did not stick to the inner courtyard. Chapter 324. You have to be careful when making friends. At least this kind of friend isn't worth making. Jiang Pengji pointed at the girl and said, if you know what's good for you, leave. I don't like to make things difficult for a 15 or 16-year-old girl. It makes it seem like I'm a bad person. The girl bit her lower lip and tried hard to resist the urge to tremble. She turned around and ran away with her face covered. Wunyang was confused from the beginning to the end. Little girl, you should be more cautious. Not everyone is worth befriending, and not every topic can be confided in. Jiang Pengji glanced at Wunyang's attire and frowned. Are you Zhu Wunyang from Master Yuanjing's family? She had long heard that Master Yuanjing had a precious old daughter, but Jiang Pengji had never seen her. How did you know? I've seen the hairpin on your head at Master's place. You're also called Wunyang. I think you must be Master's precious daughter. Wunyang subconsciously raised her hand and stroked the hairpin that was inserted into her hair bun. Her pale face was a little flushed. Are you my father's student? Jiang Pengji nodded and conveniently put down the wooden clogs in her hands. She wore them on her feet with a calm expression. But I've never seen you. There are so many students in Langi Academy, and not all of them are personally taught by Master. It's normal that you haven't seen him before. It was called an academy, but it was very different from the school that Jiang Pengji knew. Rather than calling it an academy, it was more like a library for part-time teaching. Most of the students came with questions to discuss with others. If they could not find any answers, they would look for Master Yuan Jing to solve their doubts. Most of the time, they would be studying on their own or having fun. They would only be present when Master Yuan Jing was teaching. Of course, the younger students had their own teachers in charge of teaching them how to read and write. Jiang Pengji didn't belong to the group of initiators, so naturally, she wouldn't stay in the academy for long. It was normal that they hadn't met before. Oh, Wunyang replied and lowered her head. When he thought about how his conversation with the young girl had been overheard by this person, he felt extremely uncomfortable. Can I ask a question? Jiang Pengji furrowed her brows. Why is Zixiao being vilified by others? Based on the conversation between the two girls, she could more or less guess what was going on, but there were still some things she didn't understand. It was too ignorant and arbitrary to judge that Wei Ci was not good just based on his horoscope. Wunyang looked hesitant. She initially thought that Jiang Pengji deliberately pretended not to know to get information from her, but upon taking a closer look, she realized that Jiang Pengji really did not know. Actually, you can't blame Brother Ci for this. Wunyang pursed her lips, feeling sorry for Wei Ci. Because Brother Ci was born at the wrong time, and he lost his mother when he was born, he was almost strangled to death when he was born. In the end, he was lucky enough to survive, but he was not well received. Jiang Pengji raised her eyebrows. That's it? How could they be despised by the entire Langia County just because of this? Although the girl who ran away was talkative and had some evil intentions, Jiang Pengji felt that she was not lying about Wei Ci's situation in Langi. This. Wunyang stammered. She had no choice but to say, when Brother Ci was 15 years old, his father's second wife tried to arrange a marriage for him. The two families were about to match their 8 characters, but as soon as the 8 characters were taken out, the woman resolutely broke off the engagement and spread the 8 characters. Jiang Pengji was still confused. What kind of strange horoscope could cause such great power? That horoscope is famous for cursing wives, children, parents, and even the whole clan. Therefore, it is feared by people. Seeing that Jiang Pengji did not understand, Wunyang had to bite the bullet and continue. Brother Ci was born on the 22nd day of the 8th lunar month in the year of Kueo, 22 and day of the 8th lunar month in the year of Kueo? Jiang Pengji faintly felt that this day was a little familiar. She could not help but think deeply. She seemed to have seen it somewhere before. This time of birth. Jiang Pengji suddenly thought of the content of a piece of unofficial history and said, is this really his birth date and 8 characters? Yes. Jiang Pengji suddenly understood why Wei Ci was so feared and ostracized by people. If he was born in the year of Kueo, Wei Ci was separated from that historical figure by exactly 3 60-year years, which was 180 years. Having been in ancient times for so many years, Jiang Pengji was quite familiar with some taboos in this era. 60 years was a cycle, and Wei Ci's date of birth coincided with that of a famous historical figure. Moreover, he was born without a mother, which seemed to confirm his fate of cursing his mother. This made people uneasy. Could it be that he was the reincarnation of that famous person? Which famous figure? The founding prime minister of the Xia dynasty, Huangfu Fengmin, was born in Langia County. He was also a famous romantic figure in the past. The ancestors of the 3 tribes of the northern borderline, the Jianghu tribe, led 500,000 cavalrymen in rattan armor and swept through half of the central plains. In the end, they were stopped by this person at the Sichuan plain. With a big fire, the sky darkened and the earth darkened. 500,000 wronged souls were buried in this plain. Not a single one survived. According to some old people, on special days, the Sichuan plain would be filled with white dust, like the ashes of those cavalrymen. This was probably not considered ruthless. What was more ruthless was that this person had once made tens of thousands of captives into human flesh and dried meat for the army to use. He had resisted the most tragic battle before the founding of the Xia dynasty. He seemed to have done many things like burning cities and massacring them. It was not wrong for the enemy to hate him because he was ruthless to the enemy, but why did the descendants of the Xia dynasty also avoid and hate him so much? According to rumors, this person held the young emperor hostage and tried to replace him. In the end, he was killed by the young emperor who bore the humiliation and carried out his mission. The young emperor probably hated this person to the core, so he cut off his head and separated his corpse. He took out his heart and made it into food to be cooked and shared with many officials. When she read this part of history, Jiang Pengji was completely dumbfounded. That was not the end of it. There was another unofficial historical rumor that said that the young emperor and his confidants had conspired to summon the most accomplished Taoist priest in the country to make a soul-suppressing peachwood coffin. His headless body was placed inside the coffin, and his soul was imprisoned. They used the monstrous hatred in his heart to suppress the Xia dynasty. The unofficial history also said that before the Xia dynasty was destroyed, there was thunder and lightning and a flood. This caused the mountains to collapse, revealing the peach coffin. The peach coffin was split open by a farmer who went up the mountain to chop firewood. He released the wronged souls and ended the fate of the Xia dynasty. Wei Xi was born after the Xia dynasty was destroyed. People could not help but suspect that this person was the reincarnation of that person who came to take revenge. Unfortunately, Wei Xi's appearance became more and more handsome after he grew up. He was full of talent. Whether it was the 6 arts of a gentleman or other unorthodox skills, he displayed impressive talent. When the annulment of the engagement happened, this date of his birth spread throughout Langia County. Naturally, people were anxious. It was not to the extent of taking Wei Xi's life, but his life would not be easy. I didn't know that Zixiao had such a legendary past life. Jiang Pengji teased him with a smile. Wunyang was so anxious that her eyes turned red. Brother Ci can't be the reincarnation of Prime Minister Huangfu. It's also impossible for him to do such a despicable thing. Jiang Pengji tilted her head. Prime Minister Huangfu assisted Emperor Xia and helped him go from a lowly ruffian to a hegemon who unified the 9 states. What kind of person was he? If that person was the reincarnation of that person, Wei Xi should be happy. In today's world, there might be a lack of such a person. Huh? Wunyang was confused. This was not the main point. But it seemed that there was nothing wrong with thinking that way. Jiang Pengji called the system in her heart. No, what kind of dimension is this? There's actually such an anti-science thing as reincarnation? The system rolled its eyes. He's not the reincarnation of that person. Everything is purely a coincidence. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Coincidence? Would Wei Xi cry if he heard that? Chapter 325. This is the first time I've heard it from an outsider. Many of my father's students think that Brother Ci was born with bad luck. They see him as an ominous person and wish they could cover their noses with their sleeves, as if he was the plague. Although no one said anything on the surface, they have been distancing themselves from him behind his back. Wunyang was very dissatisfied with the injustice that Wei Xi had suffered. She also firmly believed in her own opinion of Wei Xi, but she was small and not many people would listen to what she said. Now that she met someone who shared the same ideals as her, she could not be happier. It's just the opinion of the ignorant. Jiang Pengji pouted and said, countless children were born on the same day and at the same time. Do they all have the same fate? Are the children born on the 22nd day of the 8th lunar month in the year of Kueyo the reincarnation of Prime Minister Huangfu? It's just that his performance was too outstanding, so he was envied by others. Those people can't compare to him, so they can only use this stain to slander him. That's right. Those people don't understand Brother Ci at all. They echo what others say and don't have their own brains. They follow the crowd all day long. Wunyang was in high spirits. She clenched her fists and nodded, looking extremely happy. Seeing that, Jiang Pengji could not help but laugh. The audience in the streaming room also expressed that the little girl was very cute. She felt completely different from the coquettish bitches outside. Lo Siji Lianmeng, ha ha ha, this little girl likes beauty Wei Ci, right? Nugwan in, the little girl is still young. How would she know whether she likes him or not? I feel that she is more like a girl chasing after a celebrity. Beauty Wei Ci is her idol, so she does not allow outsiders to maliciously slander her idol. She swears to defend his reputation. Remote control you dropped, please. In ancient times, there were many girls who got married at the age of 12 or 13. How is he young? Nongfu Shanquan Yudiangshuan, TSK, girls who get married at the age of 12 or 13 are mostly from poor families. Slightly wealthier families will definitely keep their daughters for a few more years, at least until they reach the age of 15 before getting married. Master Yuanjing's daughter, how can her family be poor? Jiang Pengji also agreed with the audience in the streaming room. Wunyang did have romantic feelings for Wei Ci. Why are you looking at me like that? She looked like a lecher. Wunyang felt slightly uncomfortable under Jiang Pengji's gaze. She could not help but take a step back. There was an unnatural look on her face. Jiang Pengji burst into laughter and exposed him. You like Zixiao? Wunyang blushed and immediately gave up. You stayed on the tree for so long just now. You heard everything that you shouldn't have heard. You asked the obvious. I just like Brother Ci. Father said that he's a good family. If he's my husband, he definitely won't suffer. Wunyang liked Wei Ci and even wanted to marry him. It was definitely not because of his looks. She was not that superficial. Many of her female friends were engaged, but what about their husbands' families? Thanks to her identity as Master Yuanjing's daughter, she would occasionally go to the academy to deliver food to her father and would always hear some gossip. Men were not married yet, so there were plenty of times when they had conflicts with the maidservants by their side. They even had a concubine's child to embarrass his wife. It was not impossible for him to spoil his concubine to the detriment of his wife. Because of Master Yuanjing's open-mindedness, Wunyang naturally had to choose someone that suited her. Not only did she have to love her, but she also had to understand and take pity on her. When Sanwa's son had a difficult birth, the servants wanted to throw him away so that he wouldn't bring bad luck if he died in the house. She had no choice but to ask Wei Ci for help. When he heard it, he did not regard the lives of Sanwu and his son as worthless. Instead, he rolled up his sleeves and did not dislike the blood. He did not annoy Sanwu and made her scratch him when she was in pain. He actually delivered Sanwu's child with a serious expression. Anyway, after this incident, Wunyang really liked Wei Ci. Suitable room and suitable home? The corner of Jiang Pengji's mouth twitched. It was the first time she had heard such an evaluation. The audience in the streaming room almost exploded. The screen was full of 666. Liang Wang Situ, my language teacher died early. Can you explain to me what is suitable room and suitable home? Yinuajia Zhuga Qinma, the heavenly peach, the dazzling beauty, the return of the sun, suitable room and suitable home. Understand it yourself. She felt like she had read a fake book of songs. Jiang Pengji held back her laughter and said, if you like it, just tell him directly. According to Zixiao's character, regardless of whether he accepts it or not, he won't spread the news and ruin your reputation. Wunyang said dejectedly, but Brother Ci has someone else in his heart. He's a serious person. I don't want to compete with others. So? Jiang Pengji asked. So, I hope he can be with his sweetheart as soon as possible. He's already 21 years old this year. If it drags on, it'll be really difficult for him. Wunyang pouted. She felt a little sad and said awkwardly, anyway, I'm only 13 this year. There will definitely be other good candidates for my husband. That's true. Jiang Pengji liked Wunyang's open-minded character very much. Master Yuanjing was very good at raising his daughter. The audience in the streaming room also expressed that they were attracted to Wunyang. Didn't you see how many girls in the house adhered to the principle of, the person I like must like me and reciprocate my feelings? Otherwise, he would be a heartless man. How many grudges and grievances had evolved from such unreasonable reasons? It was precisely because of Wunyang's open-mindedness and cuteness that she was particularly special. Hey, after talking so much, I still don't know which student of my father's are you. Jiang Pengji smiled gently and said, my name is Lu Shi. If you don't mind, you can call me Lanting. Wunyang widened her eyes in surprise. After a long time, she said slightly angrily, sure enough, rumors can't be completely trusted. What rumors? Others say that Lu Shi is just a playboy who deviates from the orthodox path and attends meetings in his spare time. He's another example of a tiger father and a dog son. Wunyang tilted her head and secretly sized up Jiang Pengji. However, she was caught by Jiang Pengji's gaze. She could not help but blush and said shyly, I don't dare to say anything else, but at least you see things more clearly than those people. If all playboys were like you, they wouldn't be playboys anymore. Jiang Pengji was just about to laugh when she caught a glimpse of a bullet screen. She almost froze. Dashu Xiaobing, streamer, it's very dangerous. This girl wants to flirt with you. Young lady, you have a good eye for talent. She naturally praised Wunyang and herself. Wunyang was stunned for a moment. She immediately understood that the person was shamelessly praising herself. She immediately burst into laughter. Jiang Pengji urged, it's getting late. Let's go back quickly. We still have to worship the goddess of flowers. Okay. Wunyang nodded. She found a direction with fewer people and trotted away. Jiang Pengji stood on the spot with her arms crossed. After a while, she walked straight to the back of a pear tree. Aren't you moved at all when a young lady said that she likes you to your face? Behind the tree, Wei Ci felt that his heart was about to stop beating. He was so scared that he dodged backward. The back of his head hit the trunk of the tree. It seems that you really have someone in your heart. That's why you have the heart to reject the young lady's kind intentions. Wei Ci's expression was unprecedentedly serious. He pursed his thin lips tightly and looked at Jiang Pengji sharply. Chapter 326. He lowered his voice to warn her. I'm not someone who doesn't know what's important. Otherwise, I would have called you out when you got close to me. Jiang Pengji was not afraid at all. Instead, she glared at him. Wei Ci came at the right time, neither too early nor too late. Jiang Pengji originally wanted to fulfill his wish, so she did not expose his identity. Now that she saw it, the young girl was open-minded and could let it go. The man did not have any intention either. Her efforts as a matchmaker were in vain. Wei Ci lowered his eyelids after Jiang Pengji said that. He hid the strange look in his eyes. You're too boring. You have a lot of thoughts. Jiang Pengji clicked her tongue. She rested her hands on the back of her head. Her wide sleeves slid down her arms, revealing two fair, slender arms. Her wrists were slender and beautiful. Wei Ci averted his gaze awkwardly, not daring to continue looking at her. Jiang Pengji did not miss his reaction. She smiled and deliberately got closer to him. She whispered, fortunately, I'm a sensible person. Fortunately, I'm a sensible person. If I were a little slow-witted, I might think that you're a homosexual. Wei Ci's face darkened. What do you mean? How can a normal man blush when he looks at another man's arm? He even pretends to avert his gaze. Others won't suspect anything wrong with the latter. They'll only think that the former has unusual feelings for the latter. That's why. Men in this era would not say anything even if they were shirtless, not to mention showing their arms. Wei Si's face darkened even more after hearing that. He secretly clenched his fists in his sleeves. Jiang Pengji saw that he did not leave but stayed where he was. She could not help but be curious. It looks like you came here specially to look for me. She said confidently, if it were any other day, you would have flung your sleeves and left if I provoked you like this. Why would you still be standing there like a log? Tell me, why are you looking for me? Wei Si was speechless. The pear blossom petals fell with the breeze. There was no one around, and no one saw their abnormality. The audience in the streaming room watched the whole scene. They felt sorry for Wei Si, the unlucky child. Up until now, the men that Jiang Pengji had met were either bullied by her like a little white rabbit once, after which she lost interest in them, or they were in cahoots with her. Both of them were not good people. Only Wei Si was bullied by Jiang Pengji whenever she saw him. They did not know Wei Si's current state of mind, but they really felt sorry for him. Lo Siji Lianmeng, host, can you find someone else to fight? Host V, I'm not willing to. Everyone, Wei Si's expression changed again and again. In the end, he suppressed the surging emotions in his heart. I heard people say that the flower festival is your birthday. But you didn't hold a birthday party, and you didn't invite any friends, so I can't be sure. He had once thought that the flower festival was her birthday. Every year on this day, all the officials would celebrate, and the whole world would celebrate, but he still hadn't forgotten the scene of her destroying all the gifts by herself. All the maids were chased out by her, and no one dared to approach her. Wei Si did not know why she was like this and did not dare to ask. He still had a lingering fear in his heart. He didn't know why, but he suddenly had the courage to ask about it. The flower festival is indeed Lu Shi's birthday. Jiang Pengji smiled and squinted her eyes. Her answer might seem problematic to outsiders, but it was harmless. After all, wasn't she Lu Shi? When Wei Si heard this, he faintly felt that this was the case. Are you here to give me a gift? Jiang Pengji had been in Langyi all these years, and her birthday had always been spent with longevity noodles. She had never had such a flashy but impractical occasion. At most, she would have a richer meal on that day and wear brand new clothes. Yes. Wei Si responded softly. Jiang Pengji suddenly felt a little guilty. He came to give her a birthday gift, but she rebuked him with her words, which made her feel suffocated. Thinking of this, she felt that it was not easy for Wei Si. What is it? Jiang Pengji asked directly. Wei Si did not feel offended. After all, this person's reaction was already considered giving him face. It's my humble work. It's barely acceptable, Wei Si said. He took out a very delicate pendant. Beauty sleep? Jiang Pengji took it. A few beauty sleep flowers were in full bloom, and their petals were stretched. They were made of bloodstone, and the veins were handled very well. From afar, it looked like a beauty sleep that had just fallen from the branches. She could not help but raise her eyebrows slightly. Zixiao's skills have improved greatly. The stone was not of the highest quality, and it was made by Wei Si himself. Although it was not valuable, it was the thought that counts. Over the years in Langyi Academy, Jiang Pengji had been invited to other people's birthday parties. Most of the gifts she gave were the students' own works. Manuscripts, carvings, paintings, and calligraphy. Friendship was more important than value. Wei Si's gift of this pendant could only be said to be average. But Jiang Pengji secretly glanced at the bullet screen. Sure enough, there was a bunch of people ridiculing Wei Si. Bingtang lemon, invisible pretense is the deadliest. What do you mean by clumsy work, barely acceptable? Me, I've been learning carving for a few years, but I can only hug myself and cry. Jiang Pengji felt better. Host V, it's okay, I'll help you. In an instant, the bullet screen that ridiculed Wei Ci turned into heartache. He was rebuked before he gave the gift, and now he was rebuked after he gave the gift. How pitiful. Thank you. In another place, Wunyang was in a good mood. She worshipped the flower god and prayed for her family as usual. In the end, she shyly added, "May I have a lover and stay together till death." The flower festival was indeed very lively. The beautiful young girls in fresh clothes competed with each other for beauty, and the young men who were dressed in elegant robes became a unique scene. Listening to the rhythmic recitation of the elegant gathering, Wunyang was thinking about her marriage. She did not have to think about Wei Ci. They were not fated to be together, and she could not force it. There were many young talents at the flower festival, but compared to Wei Ci, all of them were overshadowed. Back home, Wunyang was still worried about this matter. Master Yuanjing looked at her pouting face and could not help but smile. He asked her, "Did you fancy anyone today?" "No, I can't compare to Brother Ci at all," Wunyang said. Yuanjing's wife saw that her husband was so inappropriate, and she suddenly became a little angry. "How can you teach your daughter like this? I'm really afraid that when Wunyang reaches the age of 15, no one will dare to propose marriage. How can you let Wunyang make the decision herself?" Master Yuanjing said, "Why are you so worried? If no one proposes, then so be it. Can't an old man like me support Wunyang?" His wife was also angry. "You know that you're old. How many years can you protect Wunyang? You don't plan well for her, and you only cause trouble." Master Yuanjing was erudite and eloquent, but he did not dare to talk back to his wife. He secretly glanced at his daughter and saw that Wunyang was smiling at him. She was watching the drama unfold. There are so many young talents. Is it true that none of them fancy anyone? Master Yuanjing stretched his neck to make sure that his wife was far away. Then, he turned to ask his daughter. "There are people, but I don't know if they have a marriage." "Oh. Who?" "Lu Shi. He's about the same age as me. He's quite humorous. He's not as bad as the rumors say." Master Yuanjing was speechless. Chapter 327. Who are you talking about? Master Yuanjing would rather admit that his ears were not working and that he had auditory hallucinations than to hear that name from his daughter's mouth again. Wunyang did not understand. She smiled and repeated, "Lu Shi. Isn't he your student, father? He was accepted into Langyi Academy, so he must have no problem with the major issues. As for his character, I think I need to observe him further." "She can't do it," Master Yuanjing denied. His firm attitude puzzled Wunyang. When she said that she liked Wei Ci, her father did not show any objection. Instead, he was happy to see it happen. It was a pity that he already had a girl he liked. Wunyang disdained to compete with others, so she chose to give up sadly. Now that it was Lu Shi, why did her father reject her so decisively? Is Lu Shi already married? Wunyang thought about Jiang Pengji's appearance and age. She felt that it was highly possible that he was engaged. The current trend was for men to marry early. It was rare for a man like Wei Ci to be single at the age of 1 in his 20s. If that was the case, Wunyang could not force him. "No. It's just that, your temperaments are not suitable." Master Yuanjing was usually eloquent, but he was speechless now. He did not know how to explain it to his daughter. "Lu Shi is not a fish in the pond. He is wild. I think you will be wronged." Wunyang was a filial daughter. She only had a good impression of Jiang Pengji. Since her father was not satisfied, she did not want him. Master Yuanjing let out a long sigh and stroked his daughter's long hair. On one hand, he felt that his daughter was like him. She had a good eye for people. Both Wei Ci and Lu Shi were outstanding. It was a pity that the former's heart belonged to someone else and he had a special destiny. The latter's gender was not suitable. He wanted to have a grandson and granddaughter. On the other hand, he felt that it was a pity. Master Yuanjing smiled kindly and promised. I will find you the best husband in the world. Wunyang was so shy that her cheeks turned red. After all, she was an unmarried little girl. She would definitely be shy when talking about her marriage. If I can't find the best, I won't get married in the future. I'll let you raise me for the rest of my life. Wunyang hugged Master Yuanjing's arm and acted like a spoiled child. She said, when I grow old at home, you can't dislike me, father. Master Yuanjing heaved a sigh of relief. It would be great if the matter could be resolved just like that. Although he could predict the fate of others, he could not predict the fate of those close to him. He didn't know where his daughter would end up in the future. The only thing he could do was to keep an eye on her and find her a real son-in-law. Jiang Pengji had bid farewell to her close friends a few days ago. She had also informed Master Yuanjing. With the fragrance of pear blossoms filling her sleeves, Jiang Pengji stepped into the orange afterglow as she returned home. There were many cars parked in front of the door. They were filled with the rare wood and furniture that Jiang Pengji had found from all over the place, clothes, jewelry, cosmetics, and land deeds, not to mention the dowry prepared in Hejian. Jiang Pengji's dowry alone had already exceeded the value of a daughter of a concubine from an aristocratic family. Many of the items that were bought had been handled by Takshu. She knew the value of these dowries the best, so she felt a little indignant. What are you thinking about again? Your lips are curled up so high that you could hang a pot of vinegar on it. Jiang Pengji washed up and changed into her pajamas. She let down the long hair that she had combed during the day and tucked it behind her head. When she returned to the bedroom, Takshu knelt down and tidied the mattress on the bed. She looked a little resentful, and her tidying movements were big. This was very different from her usual self. Her reaction was a little strong, so Jiang Pengji asked casually. Takshu tidied up the mattress swiftly. She glanced at where the booklet was placed and became even angrier. Your servant has tidied up the booklet for the dowry. I brought it here for you to have a look. Jiang Pengji bowed to Takshu and smiled apologetically. I wonder what Lanting did today to make you so angry. Takshu saw that she was fooling around and threw the corner of the blanket on the bed. She said unhappily, Lang Jun is so open-minded, but your servant is narrow-minded. Even the daughter of a concubine from an aristocratic family doesn't have such a generous dowry, let alone a daughter of a concubine who doesn't have a deep relationship with you. If it were in someone else's family, they would have emptied the storeroom. What will you do in the future? In today's era, the daughter of a concubine and the daughter of a concubine were two completely different concepts. The Lu residents gave such a generous dowry to the daughter of a concubine. It seemed like they were going to empty the storeroom. How would the son of the first wife who would inherit the family business in the future feel? Of course, from another perspective, it also reflected the generosity and benevolence of the Lu residents. They treated the daughter of a concubine so well. However, this kind of good wasn't something that everyone would buy. If it were an ordinary person, they would not be happy with what Takshu said, even if they did not have any thoughts. Jiang Pengji smiled indifferently. When my sister gets married, the dowry and her family are what she relies on in her husband's family. Not to mention marrying into the royal family. She cannot be looked down upon. I'm her brother, after all. Why should I be calculative with her? Takshu sighed. Lang Jun is magnanimous, but I'm afraid she might not appreciate it. Although they had the same father, the daughter of a concubine and the daughter of a concubine were opposite in status. They rarely got along well. Jiang Pengji smiled without saying anything. Takshu did not continue the topic. She lifted the blanket and was about to lie down. She said, we're leaving tomorrow. Have a good night's sleep. You don't have to keep watch tonight. Takshu agreed with a smile. She still made the bed in the outer room. Jiang Pengji could only sigh when she heard the movement outside. That night, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. Master Yuanjing did not sleep until midnight. He tossed and turned, which woke his wife up. What's wrong with you tonight? He tossed and turned like he was baking pancakes. Did I wake you up because I moved too much? Master Yuanjing looked at his wife, who stood up with a cloak draped over her shoulders. He said apologetically, "Go back to sleep. I'll stay in the study for the night. I'm restless tonight. I can't sleep, you think too much." His wife went back to sleep and mumbled vaguely. Master Yuanjing lifted the blanket carefully, put on the cloak, and left the bedroom quietly. The moon was bright outside. He glanced at it, lowered his head, and calculated. He frowned secretly. He did not feel sleepy until dawn. Instead, he sat in the study for the whole night. There was another person who had insomnia like him. The sky had just turned bright when the city gate opened. A group of carriages quietly drove out of the city gate. Jianghu rode white and walked in front of the group. Behind her were more than 20 carriages filled with all kinds of dowry items. More than 100 guards guarded on both sides of the carriages. They held on to the broadswords at their waists tightly. They were wary of the movements on both sides of the road. They were afraid that they would encounter bandits or mobs. Wei Ci stood in the Shirley pavilion with a cloak draped over his shoulders. He looked at Jiang Pengji's back as she left and sighed. Chapter 328. Langyi County was not far from Hejin County. Even though they met bandits along the way, they were killed by Jiang Pengji and her men before they could even get close to the carriages. Apart from these small disturbances, the rest of the journey was peaceful. It was even safer when they reached Hejin County. During the years that Jiang Pengji studied in Langyi County, the bandits near Hejin County did not have a good time. Those people were either caught and killed, or they were secretly recruited by Jiang Pengji's troops. Because of that, Hejin County had been peaceful for many years. Lang Jun, let's go home. Takshu stuck her head out of the curtain and saw the city on the ground. Her heart was filled with joy. Jiang Pengji held the reins and replied softly, "Yes, let's go home." Hejin County was the first place she stayed after waking up in this world. Even though she did not have a sense of belonging, she felt that things were still the same, but people had changed when they met again after so many years. "Let's go." After lamenting, the fleet of carriages was repaired. Jiang Pengji waved her whip and continued on the road. Because someone had informed them in advance, the Lus had already sent someone to wait outside the city. Jiang Pengji had excellent eyesight, so she naturally saw who was waiting at the front. Her lips curled into a sincere smile. She asked White to run a few steps and said to Su Ku, "Xiao Yu." Su Ku bowed to Jiang Pengji with a smile on his face. "Welcome, Lang Jun." Su Ku, who was already in his 20s, was a little longer than before. His shoulders were a lot broader, and his face was more determined. The immaturity of a teenager had faded away, and he now had the calmness of a young man. Perhaps it was because he was in high spirits when he was in a good mood. Su Ku followed Jiang Pengji to study in Langyi early in the morning. Even though he was her study companion, he was no different from a normal student in Langyi. Sometimes, he could even receive personal lessons from Master Yuanjing. 2 months ago, Jiang Pengji sent Su Ke back to Hejin to prepare for the marriage of the daughter of a mistress in the Lus. Judging by his appearance, it should have been done. "Let's not talk about this. We've been on the road for so long and haven't eaten anything good. I'm starving." Jiang Pengji threw White's reins to the servant. Su Ke said, "Madam who has prepared a banquet at home. She's waiting for you." "Madam who? What about mother?" Jiang Pengji asked. Su Ku replied, "First Madam has been busy with the wedding these days. She caught a cold this morning, so she asked Madam who to come out and welcome you." "I see." Jiang Pengji pointed at the fleet of carriages behind her and said, "Send someone to transport all these back to the manor, and then count them according to the list. If there are any problems, you must inform me immediately. I'm so tired, I'm going back to the mansion to change my clothes." The pace of life in the ancient times was quite slow. Even though he hadn't been back for a few years, Hejin County was no different from what he remembered. When she saw that there were many beggars in ragged clothes in the city, she couldn't help but frown. Su Ke took the initiative to explain. 2 years ago and last year, the harvests in the counties around Hejin County were not good. Especially during the autumn harvest last year, there was a small locust plague. There was almost no harvest in the fields. If the commandery governor hadn't opened the granary and borrowed some food from the families, there would have been more victims. Hejin County is fine, but the situation in the other counties is even worse. Even though Jiang Pengji had helped Hejin County solve the problem of bandits and avoided man-made disasters, natural disasters could still make the people suffer. Jiang Pengji's expression darkened. She couldn't help but turn her head to look at the fleet of carriages behind her. The dowry was almost all bought by Jiang Pengji. She knew clearly how much money she had spent. It was only the dowry of the daughter of a concubine in the Lu Manor, but there were countless people around who still didn't have enough to eat. Such a sharp contrast made Jiang Pengji's heart tighten, and her expression became more and more unpleasant. What about the tenant farmers outside? Jiang Pengji asked about the farms owned by the Lu Manor. The first madam took out her own money and made the decision to exempt the tenant farmers from their commission. She also helped to pay for the grain tax and gave some money to each household. The other tenant farmers were homeless and had no food to eat, but the tenant farmers of the Lu Manor were not affected much. At least they didn't become refugees. They talked and soon arrived at the Lu Manor. The gatekeeper saw Jiang Pengji and didn't react for a long time. He then hurriedly shouted, "Second Lang Jun is back." Not long after, the old housekeeper trotted out. He couldn't help but burst into tears when he saw Jiang Pengji, who was already 15 years old. "Housekeeper, it's good to be home. Why are you crying?" "Stop crying. I'll go see my mother first." The housekeeper wiped his tears and said, "The first madam just took her medicine and is already asleep. Why don't you go wash up first?" "That's fine." Jiang Pengji went back to her yard. The servant girls had already prepared hot soup and clean clothes. The servants were still the same. The inside and outside of the yard were clean, as if the owner had never left. "Xuanmei? You are." Jiang Pengji saw a slender figure. It was very familiar. She was stunned for a moment before she remembered who it was. "I heard from Xiao Xiaoyu that you are back today, and I made the decision to clean up your room." Xuanmei's face was blushing. Even without makeup, she still had a stunning beauty. She looked softer and more mature than before. "Please forgive me, Lang Jun." Hearing that, Jiang Pengji turned to look at Su Ke. She clicked her tongue and said, "So the good news is coming." Su Ke felt a little uncomfortable, so Sun Mei helped him out. "I wanted to tell you about this when Lang Jun was free. There's no need to avoid this. He has been delaying you for so many years without giving you a response. Now that he finally relents, of course, we have to get it done quickly." Jiang Pengji teased her. Xuanmei blushed. She folded her sleeves and left the room for the two of them. Seeing that Xuanmei left, Jiang Pengji asked, "Have you decided?" Su Ke knew what she was referring to. He nodded and said, "Yes." "Then don't let her down. Xuanmei is a good girl." To be honest, Jiang Pengji didn't have high hopes for Xuanmei and Su Ke. The latter was a swan. Sooner or later, he would spread his wings and soar. Compared to him, Xuanmei was just an ordinary girl. It was hard to imagine if Su Ke would treat Xuanmei the same way when he became successful in the future. In Jiang Pengji's opinion, with Xuanmei's qualifications, she would be happier if she chose a stable and ordinary man. However, that was just her guess. What would happen in the future would depend on the two of them. Su Ke could hear the warning in Jiang Pengji's words. He couldn't help but say solemnly, "I won't let her down." Jiang Pengji patted his shoulder. "Remember what you said." Su Ke said, "Of course I will." "Have a seat. I want to know about the changes in Hejin County these years. What's the situation with the troops now?" Jiang Pengji stayed in Langyi County. She would receive news every once in a while, but because of the inconvenience of communication, the information was simplified and not detailed at all. Now that she finally came back, she naturally wanted to know more about it. Speaking of business, Suku sat up straight and started to organize his thoughts. Chapter 329. Jiang Pengji had not been in Hejin County for the past few years, but she had Shiguan Rang's help in Meng Hun's internal management. The chief of Hejin County secretly opened the door for convenience. The number of people had grown to more than 5,000. This was the result of Meng Hun's strict selection and careful selection. If he ignored the logistic situation and absorbed people to expand the troops, there would be at least 50,000 people. The bandits in the vicinity of Hejin County were basically wiped out. Under the leadership of Meng Hun, the troops swept the bandits in several nearby counties. With the seized goods, the grain that the upper division cultivated and the resources left by Jiang Pengji, the expenditure and income barely reached a balance. The increasing number of troops meant that they were a bigger target. If the chief of Hejin County became wary and suspicious, life would be difficult in the future. Jiang Pengji ordered Meng Hun to transfer most of the troops away. All of them were dispersed and disguised as refugees to Chongzhou. Now, there are only 2,000 troops left in Hejin County. 1,303 are adults, and the other 607 are widowed women or girls. As for the female troops, I think it's better for Lang Jun to consider it carefully. Su Ke knew the purpose of Jiang Pengji's female troops. It was to make full use of every manpower and avoid wasting society's resources. However, in the current environment, the existence of the female troops was really awkward. Some men with dirty minds could not help but speculate that the female troops were actually used to satisfy their desires. Jiang Pengji raised her eyebrows. Why? Su Ke said, gossip is a fearful thing. The audience in the streaming room could only watch anxiously. Nigagai Chongfan, damn, don't be moved by Su Ke. Who said that girls are not as good as boys? Is it right that the social atmosphere is like this? Does it make the streamer comfortable to watch women in ancient times have such a low social status? Brainbow, streamer, look at me, look at me, look at me. What do you mean by gossip is a fearful thing? Isn't it just the social atmosphere? Could it be that the environment was correct? In ancient China, men had multiple wives and concubines. Now that society is more developed, bigamy is a crime. Tudo Shigai Chongfan, but thinking about it, what Su Ke said makes sense. We have to think for the streamer. If she really implemented the female troops, it would be fine on a small scale, but if it was on a large scale, there would be a lot of pressure from the public. Zwischen Beishijing, I despise the comment above. So what if there is pressure from public opinion? There are so many viewers in the live broadcast room who are always scolding the host, saying that she is cruel or uncultured, cursing her ancestors, but have you ever seen her pay attention to those people who are spewing shit? Seeing this, many people came to a realization. The crux of the problem was not the pressure of public opinion, but whether Jiang Pengji was willing to bear the pressure. Shanhe Ilong, host, don't panic. We will always support you. Idao 88,000, TSK. The entire live broadcast room is filled with the aura of feminist cancer. You guys might as well advocate polygamy. Ancient society was like this. The social environment determined that women stayed at home and raised children. Men were the main productive force of society. Can you calm down a little and consider the environment of the host's dimension? Were they all sick? Due to the difference in opinion, the entire live broadcast room began their daily bickering. Of course, most of the people arguing were the new audience members. Many of the old audience members were still calm and did not worry that Jiang Pengji would be persuaded by Su Ke. Lo Siji Lianmeng, by the way, do any of you remember the name and the real theme of the host's live streaming room? Huagua History de Quan, in the name of palace intrigue, it is actually a fight for the throne and the throne. In Yuejia Zhuge Qinma, #mockery. So, what else is there to discuss about the formation of the female troops? The host, Jiang Pengji, is a woman. In the future, when she competes for the throne and becomes famous in the 9 prefectures, the status of women in society will definitely rise and they will be valued in a real sense. Jiang Pengji wants the competition to be smooth, so it is necessary to improve the status of women in society. Both of them were bound together to a certain extent. Only when the environment recognized the social value created by women could the title of the female emperor be well deserved. Otherwise, even if the person sitting on the throne was a woman and the whole society was still male-dominated, she would only be a puppet. Seeing these comments, Jiang Pengji secretly laughed. The live broadcast room was a mix of good and bad people. Most of them were just onlookers, but after careful selection, there were still some clear-headed people. Note, but, don't you think that when men and women fight, women are at a disadvantage? After all, breasts. In a place like the battlefield, there was no need for manners. To deal with female soldiers, there must be some indecent methods. Hongchen Lingxi, #PickNose1. Look at what the person above said, as if the thing between a man's crotch is made of copper and iron. It doesn't hurt if you kick it. Everyone, I have decided on this matter. The female troops are determined to win. Jiang Pengji raised her hand to stop Su Ke from speaking. She said, right now, our foundation is still too shallow. What's more, joining the troops will give them a place to settle down. Su Ke thought about it and it seemed to be true. Currently, most of the 670 female troops were orphans or girls abandoned by their families. If the troops were not willing to accept them, they would either starve to death by the roadside or be abducted by human traffickers. If they were abducted and sold, they would have a different ending. The unluckier ones would go directly to a shady place to sell their bodies. Those who were slightly better off would most likely be bought by some family and become a child bride or a rough maid. They would be recorded as slaves for the rest of their lives. When Jiang Pengji limited the purchase of rice, it alleviated the food shortage in Hejian County and indirectly reduced the number of refugees. However, the natural disasters and food shortage in the next few years still produced a large number of homeless refugees. Under the premise that the whole family fled, the probability of girls being abandoned or sold was greatly increased. This was the origin of the current female troops. Why? Due to filial piety, the people could not abandon their parents. In order to continue the family line, boys could not be abandoned. Therefore, for the survival of the family, when there was no other choice, the wife and daughter could only reluctantly abandon. When there was a conflict between the two, the wife's value was naturally greater than the daughter's, so the girl was abandoned. Su Ke's heart suddenly softened when he thought of these details. He could only sigh. Lang Jun is kind. Invisibly, Jiang Pengji's image in Su Ke's heart rose a few notches. In order to protect the weak, she did not care about her reputation and was willing to bear the public's criticism and criticism. Was such an image not great? In fact, Jiang Pengji was not that great. Whether it was women or men, in her eyes, there was only one synonym: social production resources. Whoever wasted resources would find trouble with her. Chapter 330. Su Ke calmed himself down and moved the arrogant Jiang Pengji aside. He continued to report the situation. According to Lang Juan's instructions, the female troops were handed over to Maiden Jiang. So when I returned to Hejian County, I first went to find her to understand the situation. The Maiden Jiang that Su Ke mentioned was Jiang Nongqin. Su Ke kept his distance from Jiang Nongqin. She was a woman that no one could provoke. He came to Hejian from Langyi a few months ago. He wanted to find Jiang Nongqin to understand the situation of the troops. She was training the female troops. Her sparring partner was a tall and strong young man. He watched helplessly as she pinned him down and beat him up. It was really a beating. The young man was very big. The muscles on his arms were bulging. He looked very intimidating. However, his reaction was not as fast as Jiang Nongqin. He did not manage to grab the corner of her clothes. Instead, she grabbed his hair and pinned him to the ground. She pressed the sleeve knife against his neck. From the beginning to the end, it was rough and clean. It was too scary. This kind of woman, Nongqin, is very hardworking. Jiang Pengji had not seen Jiang Nongqin for a few years, but it did not mean that she had forgotten her. She would occasionally send her training lists, illustrated training plans, fighting tips, and some insights. Nongqin trained diligently every day. She would read and learn to read when she was free. Recently, she could even write letters to her and ask some simple questions. Jiang Pengji had always admired people who were willing to work hard to change the situation. Su Ke nodded in agreement. He had seen Jiang Nongqin's initial appearance. That was why he was surprised to see her change a few years later. Under Nongqin's management, the female troops had a vague scale. However, the average age of the adopted girls was too young. They could only carry out very basic training and help with some trivial matters. Those who were old enough and too weak would cry with just a little training. Nongqin could not be bothered to be gentle with such people. Jiang Pengji smiled. How did she deal with it? Su Ke's expression was strange. He said, Maiden Jiang told the female troops that they could either fight and kill here or go to the brothel to serve the men. Some people did not believe it. Jiang Nongqin mentioned it. She killed the chicken to warn the monkey. She directly sent someone to pick them up and told them where to sell them. After this, no one dared to cause trouble anymore. These girls were born in poor families and were not spoiled girls. After a few days, they saw that Nongqin was not soft-hearted at all. Naturally, they did not dare to say anything. They trained and learned to read together. Gradually, they realized that Nongqin was not trying to harm them, so they gradually became loyal to her. As for the older women, Nongqin arranged for them to wash, sew, and cook. At this time, there was a question in the live stream room. De Zhuangzhu Furen, streamer, I think you can also teach them emergency treatment. The death rate on the ancient battlefield was very high. Most people did not die on the spot, but they did not receive emergency treatment and proper care after the battle. Lo Siji Lianmeng, that's true. If the female troops want to gain the recognition of the outside world, they must take out a real hammer to shut those people up. At the very least, the host's subordinates must first acknowledge the meaning of their existence. If they could not only fight, but also treat wounds and treat soldiers, they would definitely be able to stop a lot of rumors. No matter what the outside world says, the internal power of the host must be harmonious. Jiang Pengji did not ignore these suggestions. Her fingers gently tapped on the table in front of her. Since she asked Nongqin to adopt those orphans and form a female troop, she naturally had a series of measures and plans in mind. The suggestions of the audience in the live stream room were very feasible. But Jiang Pengji frowned. Although she had learned first aid, most of those methods were not suitable for ancient times. Streamer V, do you have books on battlefield first aid? Tang roasted chestnuts, yes, yes, yes. My sister majored in nursing. I will find her books for you later. Wei Xiai Nyang Nyang Jiawa, go away, don't fight with me. I majored in nursing and have 5 years of experience in the emergency department. Note, nonsense, I am the head nurse of the emergency department. Who dares to fight with me? In the past few years, Jiang Pengji spent most of her energy on learning, but she did not relax her suppression and testing of the system. After her efforts and the gradual defeat of the system, the level of the live stream room was upgraded to level 4. And the upper limit of viewers increased to 150,000. 150,000 viewers. Even if they were all onlookers, there was no lack of talents from all walks of life. Jiang Pengji asked for some nursing knowledge. Naturally, the number of viewers who responded was like a school of carps crossing the river. She listened attentively to Su Ke's summary report and sorted out the general information in her mind. Is there any news from Chongzhou? Jiang Pengji muttered to herself for a while and asked about news from Chongzhou. Back then, she urged Lu Shi to become the magistrate of Chongzhou because she had her eyes on that place. Because the 3 tribes of the northern borderline were eyeing it covetously, Dongqing had transferred a batch of soldiers away to support Nansheng. Lu Shi had a legitimate reason to recruit troops and buy horses. He called it protecting the border. Even if the emperor of Dongqing and the northern borderline were in love, he could not reject his reason. Master sent news a few days ago that everything is fine. Yes, father is in Chongzhou, so I am not very worried. Jiang Pengji knew how rich the second branch of the Lu family was. They could build at least an army of 20,000 in Chongzhou. Coupled with her meticulously trained troops, it was not too shabby. Su Ku looked down. He could vaguely guess Jiang Pengji's intentions. According to Ku's understanding, now that all the princes have come of age, the situation of the fight for the throne is getting more and more serious. The relatives and the eunuchs have temporarily joined hands, stirring up the entire imperial court. Prince Changsho is full of ambition. I'm afraid he will make a big move next. Why don't you? Jiang Pengji shook her head. We can't. If we do that, it will benefit the north borderline that has been coveting it for a long time. She understood what Su Ku meant. He wanted to take advantage of the chaos in the court and Dongqing's people's misery to gain the upper hand and gather troops to occupy a piece of land. Of course, the bird that sticks out gets shot first. Naturally, she had to wait for the other forces to be unable to hold back and attract the firepower first. Then, she would attack from behind. If that was the case, it would be equivalent to internal strife in Dongqing, allowing the north borderline to reap the benefits. Su Ku asked, does Lang Jun want to deal with Beijiang first? Let them fight for the hinterland of Dongqing first. Jiang Pengji curled her lips and said, defending against the foreign clans is a righteous cause. A fight between brothers and relatives and an outsider coming over to snatch something definitely had a different meaning. The three tribes of the northern borderline were outsiders. Beijiang seems difficult to deal with, but are the local forces of Dongqing really that easy to deal with? The relationship between the princes, the emperor, and the feudal vassals is at daggers drawn. Including the forces supported by other aristocratic families, there will be a chaotic battle within Dongqing. Rather than fighting with them, it's better to wait for them to finish snatching and then deal with them. Before that, we should first take down the three tribes of the northern borderline and occupy their horse farms. But this Beijiang. Dongqing has been fighting with them for many years, but we still can't do anything to them. Su Ku had also considered this point, but single-handedly challenging the north borderline was equivalent to dealing with a country. How could Chongzhou, a single prefecture, achieve this? Chapter 331. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. The factor that determined the outcome of a war was not only the military strength of the two parties, but also the battle of information between the two parties. Why were strategists so highly regarded in ancient times? That was the key. Those who were good at strategizing could accurately predict the enemy's mind, grasp the initiative, and determine victory from 1,000 miles away, even with scant information. In Jiang Pengji's opinion, these people not only had abnormally intelligent brains, but their analysis and deduction of the surrounding situation were also impressive. Others had only just seen the beginning, but their brains had already deduced the ending. That was the difference between ordinary people and strategists. But what if there was detailed, accurate, and real-time information? Even ordinary people could see some clues, and strategists were like tigers that had grown wings. Therefore, if Jiang Pengji wanted to use Chongzhou as a foundation and then plot to conquer the northern borderline, she had to understand all aspects of the northern borderline in detail. I will personally write a letter to my father and ask him to send people to collect information about the northern borderline in advance. Jiang Pengji said, the royal family of the northern borderline and Dongqing have been united by marriage for almost 3 years. It's long past the honeymoon period. Next, it's time to reveal the true intentions. The princess of the northern borderline, Anyina, married into the royal family of Dongqing. She did not have any good intentions. Jiang Pengji was a witness to how she fooled around with the fourth prince, Wu Majun, under the rockery before marriage. If she sincerely wanted to unite by marriage and ease the relationship between the two countries, would she have cheated on her future brother-in-law? She married the second prince and became his princess consort. She had stirred up a lot of trouble over the years. It was a pity that the residence of the Count of Jinbei became the biggest cannon fodder. Princess Anyina was indeed the pearl of the 3 tribes of the northern borderline. She was quite intelligent. After becoming the daughter-in-law of the royal family, she quickly grasped the position of the second prince, whose mother's family did not have a high status. She coaxed him into submission and turned him into her mouthpiece in the Dongqing court. When Nanqing borrowed troops from Dongqing to repel the enemy, the second prince followed Princess Anyina's plan and recommended the residence of the Count of Jinbei. Their reasons were also very legitimate and even irrefutable. The descendants of the Count of Jinbei were good at war, and the old duke was a general who had never lost a battle. If they sent the elite troops of the Count of Jinbei to help Nanqing repel the enemy, not only could it show Dongqing's sincerity towards Nanqing, but it could also promote the might of Dongqing in front of other countries. There was nothing wrong with recommending the residence of the Count of Jinbei. The problem was that the person who prepared the supplies was the second prince, and the military supervisor was a eunuch who had a deep grudge against the Count of Jinbei. The soldiers were fighting at the front lines, but the rations at the rear could not be supplied. The reinforcements who were supposed to cooperate with the operation were always late, the injured soldiers did not receive the care they deserved, and there was often a shortage of rations and horses. The elites of the residents of Northern Marquis were tormented by such a sinister little trick, causing them to be extremely exhausted. In the last battle, the military intelligence was delayed, and 7 or 8 out of 10 elites were lost. The Count of Jinbei, who had suffered a great loss, was not only reprimanded, but also demoted and stripped of the commander's seal. Without the elite troops to rely on, and the commander's seal that even the officials were afraid of was taken away, the current residence of the Count of Jinbei was already at the edge of a cliff, in imminent danger. Although it would fall at any time, it would be smashed to pieces. If it weren't for the fact that the officials were afraid of their reputation, the residence of Count Jinbei would have completely disappeared from Dongqing. From this point of view, it seemed that Princess Anyina had done nothing, but Jiang Pengji did not underestimate her. The princess's contribution to the current situation in Dongqing's court was indispensable. Su Ke furrowed his brows, leaving a few shallow wrinkles. The real intention is revealed? Jiang Pengji smiled coldly. Isn't it? Most of the elites of the Count of Jinbei have died in the battlefield of Nanqing, which is equivalent to cutting off 30 to 40% of Dongqing's military strength. The remaining military strength is concentrated in the hands of the officials, the Meng family of Zhangzhou, and Prince Changshu. The 3 of them are not of one mind. Lang Jun is right. Lao Ai has misunderstood. Su Ke sighed and raised his hand to rub his forehead. He followed Jiang Pengji's train of thought and analyzed. There are many internal conflicts in Dongqing. If there is a scuffle, the 3 tribes of the northern borderline can reap the benefits. At the same time, there is the threat from the south. Back then, the 4 countries rushed to Nanqing's aid. The 4 factions of Nanman took the opportunity to negotiate for peace and won 2 to 3 years of recuperation. Now that they have recovered, Nanqing ceded land to seek peace and lost a large piece of land. They have yet to catch their breath. How can they withstand the strong invasion of the 4 factions of Nanman? The 4 factions of Nanman had enough recuperation. Now that they had a strong army and strong horses, Nanqing was still struggling at death's door. The destruction of the country was close at hand. If Nanqing fell, Dongqing would definitely face a pincer attack from the 3 tribes of the northern borderline and the 4 factions of Nanman. There were many external threats and endless internal troubles. With such a situation, anyone could imagine that Dongqing would be the next Nanqing. It was a dead end with almost no solution, but Jiang Pengji wanted to find a way out of it. This is our chance, Xiaoyu, Jiang Pengji said calmly. Success or failure depends on this. Who said that the 3 tribes of the northern borderline would reap the benefits in the end? To open up the situation, the only way was to destroy the 3 tribes of the northern borderline. This was the only way out. It had to be said that this idea was extremely bold, but since Jiang Pengji said it, she naturally had the confidence to accomplish it. The hinterland of Dongqing was mostly flat and suitable for cavalry battles. Overall, it was easy to attack and hard to defend. The three tribes of the northern borderline had many horse farms and cavalry. Once Chongzhou fell, the cavalry of the three tribes of the northern borderline would rush into Dongqing. Based on the current situation, Dongqing would have almost no power to resist. If Jiang Pengji wanted to conquer the world, the three tribes of the northern borderline would be the best springboard. Conquer the northern borderline, destroy Dongqing, resist Nanman, and even destroy Nanman, then contend with the other three countries. To achieve this goal, she still needed an extremely important chess piece. This chess piece must have the ability to help her restrain the nail that the three tribes of the northern borderline had planted in Dongqing, Princess Anyina. Everything is ready. The only thing left is the wedding of the fourth prince, Wu Majun. Jiang Pengji smiled mysteriously, but Su Ke did not understand. What did this have to do with the wedding of the fourth prince, Wu Majun? Just as he was about to speak, Jiang Pengji's eyes turned cold, causing him to subconsciously swallow the words in his throat. After a while, footsteps were heard from outside. Lang Jun, everything is ready. Takshu's gentle voice came from outside the door. Su Ke silently raised his eyebrows at Jiang Pengji and gave her a look. His Lang Jun was really amazing. The footsteps were so far away, but she could actually hear them. Yes, I'm tired. Go and prepare some hot soup and clean clothes. I want to take a bath later. Takshu bowed and said meekly, yes. Jiang Pengji's eyes darkened. She stood up and took a box from the shelf in the study. Let's stop here. Next, it's time for private matters. Jiang Pengji pushed the box in front of Su Ke and gestured for him to open it. Su Ke opened it according to her instructions. There was no gold, silver, or jewelry in it. There was nothing valuable either. There were only 2 dark yellow bamboo slips. Chapter 332. Su Ke took it out with trembling hands. There seemed to be an undercurrent under his calm expression. He almost couldn't hold back the trembling in his heart. His eyes were filled with tears. Jiang Pengji said lightly, this is the contract between you and Xuanmei. Take it as a wedding gift. According to the rules of the ancient times, the children of slaves were still slaves. They were born as slaves and were even worse than ordinary people. Jiang Pengji didn't need to use the contract to control them. Their existence would also become their weakness. It was better to take the opportunity to solve it. Return the contract, get rid of the slave status, and be considered good people from now on. I have never regarded you as a servant of the Lu family. This can be seen from the fact that I allowed you to call yourself Ku instead of slave all these years. Xuanmei is my personal maid, but I've always treated her like my own sister. We're not family, but we're closer than family. Su Ke, I will be happy to see you marry her. However, if you become successful in the future, don't forget the relationship between you and her when you were young. Su Ke calmed himself down and suppressed the surging emotions in his heart. He bowed deeply to thank her. I will not forget today's promise. Jiang Pengji had warned him several times. How could Su Ke not understand her attitude of protecting Xuanmei? With this guarantee, Jiang Pengji reluctantly chose to believe him. However, the audience in the streaming room was worried. Lo Ciji Lianmeng, #rubface. I feel that Su Ke has set up a big flag. Yinuajia Zhuga Qinma, I hope it won't be a slap in the face, but it's a bit dirty. Matrimonial consulting lawyer, sigh. To be honest, based on my personal work experience, I don't think they will succeed. If Su Ke was placed in the modern world, he would be a future rich and handsome man with IQ, looks, and the ability to work. Xuanmei was an ordinary girl with looks but average other conditions. Although they were a good match, their potential was different. Their social status in the future would also be different. Boji and Broom, it can't be that different. Xuanmei's backer is the streamer. Su Ke dares to do this? Lo Siji Lianmeng, the streamer's temper is right. She is protective, but she has her principles. If Sun Mei was self-reliant, the host would definitely be happy to help her. But Sun Mei looked like a conservative ancient woman who was docile and obedient. If Su Ku really let her down in the future, she would probably choose to endure it instead of exploding. Not to mention, it wouldn't be considered as letting her down. After all, in the ancient era, one man had many concubines, and it was legal to have concubines. Jiang Pengji did not miss out on these comments. After a long time, she posted a bullet screen. Host V, I trust Xuanmei and Su Ku. As for their marriage, it was better to give their blessings first. That's right. Only then did the live stream viewers react. She hadn't even gotten married yet, and they were already saying bad things here. This wasn't a good sign. As a result, the screen in the live broadcast room exploded, and all kinds of large rewards fell from the sky. Small rewards like lollipops, lovers' hearts, and blue and white bounties were basically bundled together. Jiang Pengji took a peek at the backstage and saw the notification of rewards appearing like flowing water. Viewer, Inhumane Tycoon, rewarded 99 groups of 1314 lollipops. Viewer, Don't Lack Money, rewarded 666 groups of 520 lovers' hearts. Viewer, Love Su Ku the most, rewarded 1314 blue and white bounties. Further down, there were dazzling blue enchantresses, kidney apples, and other reward props. Apart from these small rewards, the large rewards came in one after another, almost drowning the backstage of the live stream. Viewer, Doraemon, rewarded 99 groups of a pair for a lifetime, wishing Su Ku a happy wedding. Viewer, Shirley Hongzhuang, rewarded 99 luxurious private yachts, wishing Su Ku and his wife a happy marriage. Viewer, Lao Siji Lianmeng, rewarded 99 luxurious private jets, wishing Su Ku and his wife a happy birth. A pair for a lifetime, luxurious private yachts, and luxurious private jets were all reward props of the live stream system. The former was worth 999 popularity points, and the latter two were worth 1,000 popularity points. What did it mean to reward 99 groups of such valuable reward props in one go? Jiang Pengji secretly rolled her eyes. These people usually kept a low profile, but when it was time to join in the fun, they competed with each other. This wave of rewards lasted for a full half an hour. Jiang Pengji counted the points of popularity earned from rewards alone, which was close to 2.6 million. After splitting the points with the system, Zhou the exploiter, Jiang Pengji had almost 1.29 million points of popularity in her account. Looking at the points backstage, Jiang Pengji secretly raised her eyebrows. Just as the system said, the more viewers there were in the live stream, the easier it was to obtain popularity points. However, how long could the popularity points the system obtained last time be enough to support its activities? The live stream was already at level 4, which meant that the system needed more popularity points to maintain its daily operation. In the past few years, she had figured out the system's appetite, and controlling it was getting easier and easier. It was just a bunch of copied data. How could it escape her grasp? Host V, you're so generous. Is this considered generous? The audience in the live stream snorted. The streamer had never seen the world. There were many rich people in other live streams, and their actions were considered generous. They rewarded without saying a word. If Jiang Pengji was willing to act cute and call them brothers and uncles, the rewards would be even more. Even if she did not sell her body, there would be many rich people fighting to spend money on her. This was called a child who cried and screamed would get milk. The streamer never cried or made a fuss. She was a clear stream in the live stream world. Host V, it seems that I have to urge Xuanmei and Su Ku to finish their business as soon as possible so that they can have a baby. The audience, they were stunned for a moment, not understanding what Jiang Pengji was referring to. Very quickly, they realized that the unscrupulous streamer was already thinking about the money for the baby's milk powder and the baby's birthday party. No. They seemed to have forgotten something, could Su Ku and Xuanmei receive the gift of the props rewarded to the streamer? The answer was definitely no. Jiang Pengji would not exchange the popularity points for real money because the system did not support it. However, as the head of the family, Jiang Pengji would naturally prepare a generous dowry for Xuanmei so that she could have a grand wedding. As for Su Ku, she would first give him a few years' salary in advance and organize a grand wedding. Compared to the complicated weddings of rich and powerful families, the weddings of ordinary people were much simpler. Su Ku and Xuanmei's marriage was approved by the head of the family. Next, they could enter the main topic. However, Su Ku was a scholar and valued etiquette very much. Since it was a legal marriage, even if everything was simple, the 3 letters and 6 etiquettes could not be omitted. This matter was handed over to Su Ku's only elder, his widowed aunt, to handle. Xuanmei had stayed in Hejian to take care of Su Ku's aunt for many years. She had long regarded her as her own daughter, so she naturally paid attention to this matter. Jiang Pengji turned off the live stream and took a bath to her heart's content. Just as she put on her pajamas, the footsteps of a maid came from outside. Lang Jun, the dowry that Chongzhou prepared is here. Jiang Pengji smiled after hearing that. Chapter 333. A low-key and simple carriage stopped at the corner gate of the Lu residence. Lady Hui, we've arrived at the Lu residence. The servant girl's gentle voice came from outside the carriage, pulling Hui Jun back from her daydream. She pursed her lips and hid the excess expression on her face. She revealed the perfect smile that she had trained for years and got off the carriage. In front of her was a completely unfamiliar mansion. If it had been a few years ago, she would still have been a lowly prostitute who could be humiliated by anyone. She could have any man for a copper coin. She would have been chased away and insulted by the servants if she had even gone a little closer, not to mention entering such a luxurious mansion. Lady Hui, the servant girl called out. I'm fine. I'm just overjoyed at the thought of seeing Lang Jun soon. The current Hui Jun smiled shyly. She pressed down the heavy curtain and covered her entire face. Then she handed her hand to the servant girl and let her enter the corner gate. She knew that she was the dowry of the daughter of a concubine in the Lu residence, but she only looked at the energy and investment that the Lu residence had invested in her over the years. Her food, clothing, and shelter were all luxurious. Someone even personally taught her how to read and write, taught her how to evaluate paintings and poems, and told her the rules and taboos among the aristocratic families. Therefore, she did not think that she would only be a dowry who helped others win the favor of her husband. She kept a low profile all the way to a courtyard. Hui Jun saw the second legitimate son of the Lu residence, whom she had met a few years ago. Jiang Pengji was also stunned when she saw Hui Jun. Even she did not expect that a Kao, who had been carefully raised for a few years, would grow into such a peerless beauty. Her hair was as black as ink, her eyebrows were lightly swept, and the jade hairpin in her hair swayed rhythmically. She was beautiful. It seemed that even such boring swaying had become meaningful. She walked with a myriad of postures. Her graceful appearance was like a green willow that had just sprouted in the warm spring. It was unforgettable. She was no longer thin, pitiful, humble, and cowardly. Instead, she was gentle, tranquil, and elegant. A girl changes 18 times between womanhood and womanhood. This saying is true. Jiang Pengji looked at Hui Jun with a gaze that admired a beauty. She was indeed a rare beauty. She was not beautiful enough to captivate birds and beasts, but she could still topple a city. Hui Jun tried her best to stop her spine and used everything she had learned over the years. Although she looked calm on the surface, her heart was pounding like thunder. Her palms were sweaty and her back was stuffy. Her breathing quickened. It was as if the air had become thin when she saw Jiang Pengji for the first time. Hui Jun leisurely sat down and revealed her most perfect smile. She bowed in a textbook manner. Servant Hui Jun greets Lang Jun. Don't be so nervous. Jiang Pengji laughed involuntarily. Huijun's demeanor made her feel like she was the dean, while Huijun was a nervous student waiting to be inspected. You've done very well all these years. The promise I made to you all those years ago still stands. Huijun secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Only now did she realize that her back was drenched in sweat. Since that's the case, can Langjun tell Huijun what you want me to do? She looked at Jiang Pengji with her clear eyes. Even though the years had worn away the timidity in her bones, she always felt ashamed of her inferiority in front of Jiang Pengji. She wished she could bury herself in the ground so that Jiang Pengji would never see her again. Jiang Pengji tapped on the table. The sound was especially obvious in the quiet room. Will you be the demoness who brings disaster to the country? The demoness who brings disaster to the country? Huijun was stunned. Before coming to the Lu residence, countless thoughts had popped up in her mind. But no matter how she guessed, she could not even get close to the truth. Huijun smiled bitterly. All the women in the world, even if I'm as impure as I am, will not voluntarily admit that my appearance is inferior to others. However, the demoness who brings disaster to the country. I have some good looks, but I don't have the confidence to compare to the 3,000 beauties in the inner court of the palace. Jiang Pengji nodded. That's true. Huijun was indeed very beautiful, but this kind of beauty belonged to the human world. If one worked hard, one could find a beauty who could compare to her. When Huijun heard this, her heart felt as if it had been pricked by a needle. It hurt faintly. At that moment, she heard Jiang Pengji say, "But I'm asking if you are willing to be the demoness who brings disaster to the country, not anything else." Huijun hurriedly replied, "Of course I am willing." Perhaps it was because she had been humiliated since she was young and had tasted sorrow, but Huijun had always longed for someone to save her from this sea of suffering. The person in front of her had done it. That year, she had personally killed the ruffians who had bullied her in the mass grave. She had secretly made up her mind. Even if she had to go through a mountain of knives or a sea of flames, she would not hesitate to give her life to the person in front of her if he asked. One had to know how to be satisfied and grateful. Huijun had retained this sincere heart. She understood that after leaving the slums, she had stolen every day. How many prostitutes had died miserably? Even on their deathbed, they were barely clothed, and bystanders had to cover their noses when they saw their corpses. She was the only one who had enjoyed so many years of glory and wealth. Perhaps she could go one step further in the future. Why would she not be satisfied? As soon as she finished speaking, she heard the youth in front of her say to her, "If that's the case, I'll give you some good fortune." Huijun lowered her head and bowed. Jiang Pengji was speechless again. It's not that easy to be the demoness who brings disaster to the country. You might even face the situation of being reviled by the people of the world, so consider carefully. Huijun shook her head and said, "Langjuan's words are wrong. So what if I'm the demoness who brings disaster to the country? Isn't that the noblest woman in the world? Everything in the world is at your fingertips. You can live freely and not be trampled on and humiliated by others. You can even make those who were once high and mighty bow or even break their backs. How is that not good? As for what happens to one's reputation after death, one is already dead. Who cares about what happens after death? So what if the people of the world reviled her? Throughout history, although no femme fatale could end well, no one had the ability to teach them a lesson. No matter how they died, they enjoyed glory and wealth while they were alive. Jiang Pengji choked on Huijun's words. She did not expect Huijun to think that way. It's naturally the best that you can think that way. Jiang Pengji raised her hand and pointed at the medicine on the table that was still steaming. Drink it. Huijun got up and took 2 small steps. Without asking what the medicine was, she raised her hand and picked up the bowl of black, bitter, and unpleasant medicine. She tilted her slender and fair neck and gulped it down. Jiang Pengji passed her the candied fruit. She accepted it readily and silently kept it in her mouth. When the bitter taste in her mouth was suppressed, she spoke timidly. "Your servant has a wish. Can you fulfill it?" Thinking of her own request, She felt that her tongue was about to be tied. Sure. Jiang Pengji nodded and agreed. Lang Jun, can you hug me? She blurted out. Her heart was faintly filled with hope and apprehension. Jiang Pengji looked into Huijuan's eyes and suddenly understood. She opened her arms slightly. Chapter 334. Jiang Pengji maintained her posture and patted her back until the breath in her arms gradually calmed down. The medicine that Huijun had just drunk was not poison, but a bowl of thick sleeping medicine. Silly girl. She sighed softly and put one hand under Huijuan's armpit and the other under her legs. She lifted her up easily. Takshu, no one is allowed to come near the courtyard without my orders. Takshu secretly glanced at the sleeping Huijun. Her expression froze for a moment, then disappeared as if it had never appeared. Your servant understands. She bowed and retreated, gently closing the door of the bedroom. Jiang Pengji turned around and walked into the bedroom. She lifted the thin blanket on the bed and placed the sleeping Huijun on it. With a thought, the back end of the system opened the package. There were a few strange cards that shone brightly in color. The system felt vaguely uneasy, but it could not stop Jiang Pengji at all. It could only test her nervously. It deliberately said in a relaxed tone, "Host, what are you doing?" Jiang Pengji did not even frown this time. She just took out all the cards stored in the package and placed them on the table according to the order in which they were obtained. Her slender fingers brushed across the surface of each card, and her eyes revealed a dangerous message. She picked up a card, and the golden words of introduction appeared automatically. XX Masterpiece, Winding Corridor of 9 Turns. Wonderful and unpredictable. You deserve it. No man will be able to live without your charm. Men will be intoxicated and unable to extricate themselves. You will truly have a harem of 3,000 beauties and 3,000 adoration. From then on, the king will not attend morning court. Jiang Pengji glanced at it with a face full of disdain, but she still picked it out. Easy pregnancy pill, the new voice of a young phoenix, Lin Ji shows auspiciousness. Once chosen by the king's side, 3,000 adoration will gather, but flowers will not bloom for 100 days. One can only sigh that beauties age quickly, and men's hearts are fickle. If you have a son by your side, you will definitely stand at the top of the harem and laugh at the flowers competing for beauty. This card was not very useful at the moment. After Jiang Pengji thought about it, she put it away and picked up the third card. Full breasts, wrists raised high, body turned, and breasts covered with silk clothes. A full cleavage is one of a woman's most powerful weapons. Having an impressive chest is undoubtedly a powerful bargaining chip. Other people conquer the world, you conquer the man who can conquer the world. The fourth card. Willow's slender waist, slender and enchanting. A waist that can't even be grasped is every woman's dream. P.S. When this card is used together with full breasts, it will have a miraculous effect and bring men a visual impact. The fourth card had appeared twice. The first time was when the system gave out the reward for the mission, saving Meng Liang. But Jiang Pengji didn't care about the system at that time, so she killed Meng Liang and failed the mission. Later, in the semi-interactive live stream mode, Jiang Pengji started the live stream mission. After completing the mission, she drew a card from the silver chest. The system lived up to its reputation as a harem drama streaming system. It understood the essence of the appearance association, and most of the rewards it gave were to improve one's appearance. Apart from that, there were also quite a number of limb correction devices, such as this one: straight jade legs, long and slender, perfect and flawless. Another example: snow-white wrist, slender like a willow, elegant and alluring. Not only did it improve one's appearance, but it also enhanced one's temperament and charm. Cold and aloof, seductive to the bone. After using it, one will have the cold and elegant temperament and natural charm of the goddess of the ninth heaven. Jiang Pengji was also confused by the description of the card. Was her language bad or was the system contradicting itself? Actually, that was what the system wanted to express, a cold and aloof fairy in front of others, but a slutty woman in bed? But that was not the main point. Jiang Pengji had always thought that it was the most shameless of all the cards. Eternal, virgin, use this card and you will have the firmness of a virgin. When used together with XX masterpiece, both of them will have a qualitative improvement, allowing a man to enjoy eternal happiness. The emperor loves color. A moment of freshness won't make him linger on you. Only by being fresh all the time can his heart and body be attached to you, so that the emperor's favor in the harem will never fade. Other than that, there were other cards with different functions. For example, she had delicate snow-white skin, silky black hair, light pink fingernails, cherry blossom-colored lips, mesmerizing eyes, long and thick eyelashes like a small fan, slender and sensitive neck. Jiang Pengji did not slack off in the past few years. She did live streaming when she needed to, and she did it in whatever mode she needed to. With such diligent work, she gradually accumulated a large pile of cards over the years. At the beginning, the rewards given by the system were more expensive. As time went on, the cards that were drawn became more and more ordinary. Basically, they only modified and optimized parts of the body, while some increased some charm. Jiang Pengji did not expose the system and pretended that she did not know. System, you're so smart. Why can't you guess what I'm going to do? Jiang Pengji sneered coldly and mocked. We've been tied together for almost 4 years. Don't you know me well enough after such a long time? Do you think I'll use these cards on myself? Of course, I'm not taking them out to admire the contents. Guess what I'm going to do? System, it did not dare to guess. Jiang Pengji said, I remember I asked you before. These cards do not take effect instantly. No matter how powerful the system was, it could not complete plastic surgery for someone in an instant. According to Jiang Pengji's knowledge, the effects of all cards were slowly modified based on the user's foundation. The length of the modification depended on the final effect. For example, temperament modification, most of them only required 1 or 2 days. Others required 10 days to half a month. The system did not want to say anything, but Jiang Pengji's actions made it anxious. Host, using items produced by the system on someone other than the host is against the relevant regulations of the system. Jiang Pengji sneered coldly and threw out a card. The system looked at it and was suddenly speechless. The content of the card was a little ridiculous. Yang Baoxiang, natural body fragrance. When a man smells it, his sexual desire will increase greatly. It can increase the pleasure of a couple's bedroom and make a man not impotent for a long time. The card used a woman's body as a carrier, but the one who benefited in the end was the man. Strictly speaking, it was considered to be used by someone other than the host. Jiang Pengji carefully studied the original contract. There was no such clause. The system's words could deceive unfamiliar people, but to deceive her? Haha. The system tolerated it and finally chose to curl up. It was powerless to stop Jiang Pengji's actions. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.